Hello and welcome to episode 29, the penultimate for season 3. Our guest today is one of my all-time favourite people, Brad Cooper, a retired New South Wales police officer with a career spanning over 2 decades. Brad began his journey in the community nursing field before transitioning to the New South Wales Police Force, where he served in a variety of roles including highway patrol and as a police association organiser. Known for his calm demeanour and dedication to helping others, Brad worked tirelessly to support his colleagues and advocate for safer working conditions. After facing his own mental health struggles, Brad redirected his passion for service into starting his own business as a driving instructor, where he now focuses on helping individuals gain confidence behind the wheel, particularly those with anxiety or unique challenges. His story is one of resilience, transformation, and the importance of finding new ways to make a positive impact. Personally, Brad is one of my most favourite people. There's never a time when we don't share a laugh, and the passion he has for anything he sinks his teeth into is truly inspiring. I hope you enjoy this chat with a couple of old mates. It's my absolute pleasure to share this episode with you all today. Welcome to Triumph Beyond Trauma, the podcast that explores journeys of resilience and hope. I'm Rosie, a yoga and breathwork teacher and founder of Tactical Yoga Australia. As a former soldier's wife, mum to 3 beautiful kids and a medically retired New South Wales police officer with PTSD, I understand the challenges of navigating mental health in the first responder and veteran community. Join us for incredible stories from individuals who've confronted the depths of mental illness and discovered their path to happiness and purpose, as well as solo episodes and expert discussions. Together, we'll uncover the tools to help you navigate your journey toward a brighter, more fulfilling life. Whether you're looking for helpful insights, practical tips, or just a friendly reminder that you're not alone, Triumph Beyond Trauma has got your back. You matter, and your journey to a happier, more meaningful life starts right here.
Like I said to you before, I don't know if we've got a script or a tangent. I think we're going to bounce all over.
I think we will. I've got a very loose thing here to keep us maybe a little bit on track, but
that's probably good. But yeah, like I reflected when I found this and I listened to your story one, that broke me for fucking days. And I'm like, why? But I think I did a lot of work on it, and it's like, well, I've always been the one to help others and to try and circumnavigate that damage and that injury, and especially when I was working in the police where I was, and plus with my union time there, I was always out trying to put that balloon under someone so they wouldn't fall, or the big airbag or something, or just be there to protect them from the shit and help them out. And then I heard your story and thought, fuck, they've done it to you too. You know, like you're the most sweetest, energetic, wonderful bloody person out there that always comes in, kind of like another one we worked with at Inverell, Kelvin. He never went anywhere without a big fat smile on his head, and he had total positive attitude.
Yeah.
But, you know, in the background, he had a busy life going on. But
he absolutely does. Yeah.
He always bought it. He always came with the goods. And yeah, it really hit me, I guess, that I couldn't, you know, it's like, well, no, it's not meant to happen to people like you. It's meant to happen to others. Like, you know, it's that, I don't know what it is. I'm still working on that. But
I think, yeah, I think after talking to other people, I think it is that sense of care. Like, I think knowing what I know now, I think it gets most people. I just think it maybe hits a little harder for the ones that care a lot, because, you know, there's cops out there that don't, and it is just a job. And I think they have maybe a little bit more resilience because they don't allow it to affect them so much. But then I know those people as well have said, you know, I'm good, it's never going to get me. And then it's got them too. So I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I've been to too many police funerals where that's exactly the case. Everyone's like, how did this happen? And they're just stoic until they just can't do it anymore. But no, since listening to a few other podcasts of yours and hearing that, okay, well, it's the same treatment that we all get, and hearing from other people, some I knew of, some I didn't know, but the stories are the same. You know, you start your career, wow, and it's almost like a meme. And then after a couple of years, you're like, wow. And then after 10 years, you're like, oh, wow. And then, you know, you're sort of getting there going, oh, wow, I'm still getting kicked in the guts. Oh, wow, you know. And I often joke that I needed my bulletproof vest more in the station than outside. But yeah, after listening to a few of those, it was like, well, they're getting treated the same. but there's not that closer connection or knowledge of the individual like I had with you and many other people. So it's like, oh, okay, well, it's the same. It's a shame it still keeps happening, and even in line with the new PPD changes, that's a bookmark event. But if I can, and you can bring me back or make notes, if I can waffle, when I was doing my time as an organiser with the Police Association, that was from 2018 to 2020. And that was on the back of being a branch official for Yonks and being involved in the many campaigns. They wanted to shut down D&D, including 2012 when it changed. And then there was another one that changed recently, and now this one. In that time with the union, it was very clear that this was an unsustainable model. Like pre-88 went out the window, too costly. SAS went out the window, too costly. We get the blue ribbon. So it started a gold medal, bronze medal, silver medal, bronze medal. We get bronze medal, blue ribbon. And that was becoming too costly because there was no other alternative.
Yeah.
Then walks in the idea of the optional disengagement scheme. Ripper, what a great idea, because the hierarchy back then, and then moving through to the current hierarchy, are all in favour of treating cops right. We'll get to that part next.
The hierarchy of the association or the New South Wales Police?
Well, both, but the hierarchy, the then commissioner and then the current commissioner now, Karen Webb, are all for, we've got this culture where we're not looking after the cops. We need to fix that.
Yeah.
And more importantly now with Ma'am Webb, like, she's brilliant at it, but it's still not getting through to where it needs to be. There's a lot of cultural change. So optional disengagement, perfect. And being involved in that, the aim was, as I understood, and for my limited interaction with it, to give the cops that have got between 5 and 15 years, because that's the demographic that they are mostly leaving with HOD or resignation, give them an opportunity to exit the career with dignity, give them a year funding to basically transition to another career. So if you walk out with 150K with a tax benefit, and you can put that into a uni trade or some other kind of employable skill transition with the support of the cops, then you don't go down the injury path and you don't ruin your life by being labelled as having a PTSD or a PDS or just cranky. And then I'm like, yeah, this is great. And I left the union, went back to the cops, went out. And then while I'm dealing with what happened to me and my last day of service, I'm hearing all these pre-88 and SAS members getting the optional disengagement. And I'm like, hang on a minute.
Yeah,
you're about to get a golden egg.
Yeah.
Why are you also tapping into this and giving the other cops that are at risk that need it? It didn't make sense. And I was extremely angry. Not that I could do anything about it at that stage. But yeah, it wasn't until later that I found out, I haven't verified it, but my information is that purely due to tax ruling, which is the ATO, federal government, their fault, that they wanted to have a tax regulation or a tax cut for the cops to take it. But they said, unless you open it to all employees, you don't get the tax deduction. Now I don't know if that's fact or fiction. It makes sense.
It does make sense.
But, it's like the union getting slammed for a number of other things. The leading senior constable that was meant to keep coppers on the beat, to keep that experience from getting into things, they get the benefit. And then suddenly it's gone through every specialist command. Union got blamed for that. I don't have enough knowledge to know where it's at, but I think a similar kind of pattern, you come up with all these great ideas, and then the theory of yes minister or yes prime minister comes in, if you've ever seen that show. A good idea goes in, it gets manipulated by a whole lot of officials, and then comes out the poor cousin of its former self.
Yeah.
So I think the same thing's happening. I don't blame the union or the cops for that decentralisation of the leading senior constable thing, but it's just another thing where ideas from the field come up to show the upper management, the government and everything, here's an idea how you can treat cops better, give them respect and ensure retention and recruitment. And then suddenly it gets taken away from what it started as and becomes something different that then forces, I believe, my opinion, puts resentment back on the organisations, both resentment on the government, and then those cops are left thinking, yes. I mean, imagine sitting there going, I'm nearly about to go off the perch. I've tried to talk to people. I'm scared of going HOD because I don't feel I'll be supported. Here's an optional disengagement. I might have an opportunity to get out because I can't leave at this salary and suddenly support myself and my kids for 2 years while I retrain. This is a great idea, only to have it taken out from under you. And then, boom, you're like, well, what have I got now? Here's a 902. I'm suddenly off work. And how do you fix that? It's going to take a lot more time. So I guess with the current change on the TPD, the writing's been on the wall for many, many years. You know, they changed it in 2012. It was an uproar. 2009, we had a massive uproar. Recently, again, there was another one. And now this has changed again. The writing's been there, but it's like a simple thing. Just stop treating cops like shit inside, and and that will help. And I don't know who listens, and you know, I hope you got a great audience. And if Karen Webb's listening, great respect to you, man, because I know the ethos is to change that culture and to treat people right. But there's still that middle between the commissioner, deputy commissioner, and the supervisor or the inspector. That's still in a lot of areas has a lot of work to go. But I think once that culture is changed and we start treating cops like they're valued employees instead of fodder. Yes. You know, there's so many stories of coming back from doing the worst job and then getting in trouble because you haven't filled a diary in 2 weeks ago, or you're not wearing a hat, or, you know, I got in trouble for being seen on TV or something ridiculous. It's just all that stuff is like, it is the death by 1,000 cuts. It's those little things that wear you down and suddenly you just go, sorry, I can't do it. Or like me, you just go and blow up somewhere. But, you know, that happens.
I like that death by 1,000 cuts bit, because it's so true though. Like just you go to a multiple fatal or you go to something real bad that you don't really want to do that day. Like, police don't love doing those jobs. There's not many people that would enjoy that. And yeah, you can be good at your job and go and do them. But then to be berated for rubbish, absolute rubbish, is where a lot of people do lose it, unfortunately. And how much of that can you take? And why should you be expected to take it? I mean, we're all human at the end of the day.
I mean, you sign up to be a cop and, you know, I mean, the glossy ads and the videos are really cool. And, you know, I still remember the He Ain't Heavy from the 80s, that advertising commercial. And every time the song comes on, I get chills. Yeah. Because it meant something to me. And it was about being in the role to make a difference, to help people and do stuff. Not once did they show all the other crap that went on in the background.
Definitely not on the pamphlets, is it?
And they say, oh, you signed up for it. You knew what you were getting into. What do you expect? Yeah, okay. I would go back tomorrow if I could go out on the truck, deal with dead ends, go and do death messages, go and help families, go and pick things up, go and get stabbed again, go and walk into armed robberies and do all that shit. If I knew when I went back to the station, I was not going to get an aggressive death by 1,000 paper cut response. Instead, I'd be like, hey, mate, you okay?
Yeah.
What's happened? What's your job? Okay, well, sit there and do what you need, take a lunch break, and then get back out on the road once you're done. Instead, you get total difference in that kind of stuff. So, I mean, I'd go back tomorrow if that was possible. Yeah. But you just know, sadly, it's not. And I know there's pressures on supervisors. I was one. There's pressures on upper managers. Been there, done that. But it doesn't, if it was a private entity, it would be broke many years ago. It's like people would just be exiting. And that's sadly what I see now. They've got a lot of vacancies because of the hurt on duties. It took me 18 months to get out. Yeah. And that wasn't from me. I did spend a few months wanting to go back, and then we did a role play. I found a really great psychologist up in Brisbane. He used to work with Blue Hope, but now he's just elevation psychology, Mark Kelly. And he's an ex-AFP cop, and he went through Bali bombings over there. He's seen and done everything and then become a clinical psychologist.
Right.
So it was really good to find that support. And through this, he said, all right, you want to go back? All right, let's do some role plays. And that was the scariest 45 minutes of my life. He knew what to do. And he's like, all right, you've just gone out and here's this bloke doing this and you've done this. How are you going to react? Oh, yeah, right. And he just kept increasing the layers, and then he started putting the micromanagement in, and by the end of it, I'm screaming at him and bloody carrying on. He's gone, okay, let's just time out. He's gone, just check your pulse, and it was through the roof. And I'm like, oh, and he's gone, so how do you think you'd go returning to work tomorrow? And I said, I reckon I'd end up being charged.
Yeah.
That's
Definitely
probably how it's going to end up. So it's like, it's like, okay, tapping out, I'll agree. But it still took a long time. So I've heard there's 250 cops went off after they announced the TPD change for 1st of October. Fact or fiction, either way, 250 off the books. They're not off the books yet.
No,
they're still taking up first response numbers. They're taking up specialist numbers. They can't be replaced due to the overstrength issue that has been in play. And I got understanding of that in the union, but it's far too complex for me to A, remember, or B, discuss. But it is a thing. It is a problem. It turns out with budgeting and all this other crap. But yeah, you lose 250 cops. 250 cops in the Metro Sydney basin alone, or even New South Wales, Newcastle, Sydney, Wollongong. That's what POWI stands for. You lose 250 cops out of that. That is a heck of a lot of impact on your first response. And that is going to stay there for at least 18 months.
Yeah.
So it's not a good idea. It's not a good way out. But for those individuals, what's their option if they're losing the benefits? And if you're going to sign up to the cops now, I still don't discourage people from doing it. It was the greatest career I've ever had, 21 years. Absolutely love it. Some great friends like yourself, some great experiences that we'll get to in the humour part of this. And it's certainly awesome. But yeah, you need to know how to look after yourself, because until the change comes, they're not going to do it for you. And a lot of that is now through mindfulness, that people used to go, ooh, woozy, what's that shit? No worries. Choir practice used to be great and still is to a point where you just go and solve the problems at a pub.
Yeah.
But, you know.
I agree with that to a point too. You know, that way of connecting with your teammates especially is fantastic. And you don't have to get slaughtered every time to do that. But I can't remember. I was either listening to a podcast or reading a book or something. Someone I was talking to, because they were talking about this. And then there was changes, you know, like if you organise an event, because they're called events because it's all with work people. If you organise something, then everyone has to be invited. You know, otherwise it's bullying.
Oh, yeah.
You know, that sort of stuff came in.
Yeah.
And then I think that's how it's sort of dropped off, because you're actually not going to get along with everyone on your team. And that's okay. That's okay.
That's right. Exactly right.
Yeah. So, I mean, I agree. And when that sort of stops, like having a few beers after an event, and we'll talk about my one, I put on a couple of cartons, you know, because I had a bit of a day, and that's what you did. And we all defragged off it, and it was good. It was great. And we dealt with it at that time. And I think what happens now is that doesn't happen. You go back to work, get berated for not wearing your hat on TV, and then you go home to your partner and you don't talk to them about it because you don't want them to know. And then it just stays within you until like you get all filled up, and then you blow your top. And
or you go and have a bender. And that's the left and right from
that's
it. And I think a lot of people you've spoken to, and I know my journey is very, very similar. It's the other release. It's like, I'm just going to do this to stop the thinking, to numb the pain, to numb the voices, and to be able to get to sleep. But you're not sleeping. And I've done a lot of research when I had to step out of my alcohol connection. A lot of research, you're not. You're basically, it's like an anesthetic. It's a chemical anesthetic. You're not sleeping well, so you're not resting, but you don't hear the voices.
Yeah.
Hopefully you hear the need to go to the toilet or to vomit. Otherwise, that'll end up a different story. But, you know, you don't hear the voices. So you knock yourself out with the grog, and then you start all over again.
Yeah.
It's a slippery slope, because it is a bitch of a thing to get away from, alcohol. It is a hard thing, and I'm still fighting with it, but a lot better now. With one particular time, everything I did involved alcohol with cops. It was all going out, and everything involved alcohol, because that's what you did. And it was like mini choir practices to go on, let's have a chat, let's do this. I was doing that 6 nights a week.
Yeah, that's a lot of choir.
That's a lot of choir. I had a sore voice from singing.
Yeah,
Um,
too much
and
singing.
and then, you know, you sort of get home and I talk to my wife and go, "Fuck," I'm sitting there shaking because I wanted a beer. And she's like, "It's a Wednesday. What are you doing having a beer?"
Yeah.
Like, well, why can't I? And then you have that defensive argument. But yeah,
Yes.
that's grog. It's not a nice thing. But the mindfulness practice and all that kind of woo-woo stuff that no one really did back then, I think it's starting to come in, and you've got agencies like Fordham that have come in line. The police, to their credit, have started this other wellness thing that was a bit clunky to start, but I think it's getting better. It was really hard when I started trying to do that because when I flipped a switch, I just went to the doc and said, "Look, I'm feeling a bit shit. Give me your opinion." And I sat there for an hour, and she's like, "Right, questions, answers, questions, answers." With a 1 hour appointment, I couldn't believe it. She said, "I need you to come back tomorrow." I'm like, What's my result? What am I doing? What am I going to do? So just come back and see me tomorrow. I'll make time, and we'll go from there. And she posed a lot of situations to me because I'm a little bit of an overthinker. Okay, I'm a lot of an overthinker.
Yeah.
Thanks, dear. She posed a lot of situations to me, and I'm like, righto. And then I went back the next day, and I just lost my shit. I burst into tears, and I couldn't cope. She was asking me these questions, I was answering, and then the reality hit of, I don't think I can go back, at least not now. And that was a very hard realization when I'd been, managing this group of people. I had vested interest in their well-being. I was trying to keep them afloat. And then the doctor's going, "You can go back, but you won't be there for long. And how much worse do you want to get? Or what happens if your decision," what happens if a decision you make or don't make affects the life of someone on your team or someone on the street, and then they're challenged? How are you going to live with that? And I'm like, "Yeah, okay, box of tissues, please. That'll do."
Yeah.
And that was it. She put me off, started me on some medication, and that was my last ever time. And that was December 2021, 2020. Oh shit, I don't know, a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was a significant point. But back then, you couldn't stop the thinking. You couldn't stop. It was just constant, and it was so hard to sleep. You're wired. You're just nervous energy, to the point where you know something's going to go wrong. You're going to make yourself physically sick, because the problem with thought, energies, emotion is they're all, here we go into a woo-woo space.
Let's get into it. I'm here for it.
They're all energy.
Yes.
So
Everything's energy.
100%. So it's when I used to get stressed or worried, my legs, like my quads, would burn up, and I'd have to go and do something, or my legs would bounce and stuff. And then I learned through weightlifting, okay, you do your squats, you burn it out, and then suddenly you feel a little bit better. And I'm like, that's weird. Must be because I did a workout. I don't know. It was yonks later that I learned the somatic connection between psychology, emotions, and the energy in the body. So getting that to release is really, really hard. So I think it was about trying to manage that. When you learn that the energy you hold through your emotions has a somatic connection, which means that the energy is transferred through your body and it will store somewhere or release. And often it will store, and if it does store and you hold it too long, it risks causing an injury to something. And I've known people that have died with injuries that are related to this. They won't prove it, of course. Others have gained cancer because of the worry, and it happened in the stomach and the bowel, because that's where largely your worry is. It's that gut feeling. It's that strange sensation and butterflies in your gut, that stress, that's anxiety. It starts there. If it's not released, it can form into something that will become something you don't want it to be. And that's what I was very mindful of not wanting to have. So to try and find a release, the medication helped reduce all that for me to be able to take advantage of counselling.
Yes.
Otherwise, you're just going around in circles. And then the counselling guided me to mindfulness, presence, meditation, all that stuff, which I dabbled in before, but I'd been on some funny meditation apps that you try and get, and you love it. You sit there and go, right, I'm into this. Okay, I'm going to try it. No one knows where I am. I've got headphones on. I'm going to sit here quietly, and you hear this voice, quiet music in the background. Hello, we're going to meditate today. all you need to do is breathe and stop any thoughts coming into your mind. And I'm like, fucking whoops, how do I do that? And then bang, it stopped. It was like, no, this isn't going to work very well at all for us.
I think meditation, like that word and those type of practices are so incredibly difficult for first responders.
Yes.
And I actually don't teach that. I won't teach meditation to first responders because it's so hard to sit still. It's the mindfulness and the little snacks of mindfulness that you do and you build up that practice. That's where it's at, I reckon, for first responders, and taking those little tiny moments in your day to just stop and have a look, because we can't stop. We can't stop what's going on up here in the head. Like you said, there's a lot of energy being held within the body because the body keeps the score. Have you read that book by Bessel van der Kolk?
No.
It's all about the somatics and how the body holds trauma. You'll love it. But it's so true. Like, so when a first responder's got so much rumination happening, but also so much energy, they physically cannot sit still and switch off the brain. Like two things, all these things are happening. It's crazy. Yeah. So I get what you're saying about the meditation, because it's really difficult.
Yeah, and that's the whole basis of it. Like this generic app said, just clear your mind and don't think of anything and focus on your breath. And I'm like, mate, you're gone. Thanks. It took a while, but then learning that it is the whole practice of meditation is your focus. And as you practice, which means you can improve, it doesn't mean you're going to get it right first. You practice it, and it's about breathing in, breathing out. You take the deep breaths in, the deep breath out. That resets the parasympathetic nervous system. It resets the vasovagal nerves. So I've done a lot of psychological research on this since. I understand it holistically, but I still struggle with it. But I'm better because it is a practice. But it's about, once I learned that, there was another one I heard, and I won't do the woo-wah voice, but it was basically, okay, focus on your breathing. Breathe in through the nose, count to 4, hold for 2, breathe out through the mouth, count for 4, blah, blah, blah. And anytime your mind wanders, which it will, and this was a key change, giving yourself permission for your mind to wander. So you'll be like, okay, breathing in, breathing out. That prick the other day, he didn't do anything. He was doing this, and it's like, oh yeah, shit, I'm breathing in. Yeah, breathing in.
Breathing.
Right, yeah, back to breathing out. Don't pass out. Oh, remember that asshole down the road? Oh, blah, blah, blah. Giving yourself permission to allow your brain, you can't stop it thinking, it's going to think.
Yeah.
But the whole idea of this within mindfulness and meditation is to practice bringing your attention back to breathing. And the longer you do that, the longer you can focus on breathing between the brain gaps. And my brain gap keeps going on, and it depends on what's going on the day, but it's all still beneficial because you're able to just stop, take that deep breath in, deep breath out, because often, as everyone in this space would know, when you're in that heightened awareness, your shoulders are up, your chest is tight, you're hunched a bit, you're in the fight or flight,
jaws
you're ready to go, jaws clenched, your asses, everything's clenched. And the last thing you're doing is deep breathing. So you're in the shallow breathing space, which reduces your oxygen, brings in your tunnel vision, target fixation sets. All this stuff happens and you don't even know it until you can stop and do a couple of deep breaths. And then suddenly you're like, oh, look at that. I can see. I guess to doing that. And another point that I found in way of you can't sit still and the energy is find what you like. Like I did walking, and then I was sitting on rock walls, and then, all that stuff. But I found on a bike, on mountain biking, going on a trail in a mountain bike, if anyone does that, you have no choice but to focus on what you're doing. Absolutely. So it is very mindful, because if you take your focus off, like I did once, you crash, it hurts, you don't want to do that again. But putting that focus into, right, I'm going here, going there, you're watching your lines, you're burning your energy, you're breathing hard, you've got one thing on your mind, you don't have space to ruminate. That's the good word. You don't have space to ruminate on what's happened at life, what's happened at work, what's happened with how you've been treated, and everyone's been treated unfairly. So something like that, find your key, whether it's riding, running, walking, something you can do that just takes that focus. Surfing, I believe, is really good, but I'm not really good at it, so I haven't found that to be a gig. But yeah, I tried running. That doesn't work because I'm a 50-year-old that's treated my body like an amusement park, not like a temple. So my knees and shit don't work too well. But cycling has come good, and the meditation, trying into yoga, same thing. So all that stuff it is good in that release space to just try and give you a gradual release. It won't happen overnight,
No.
as you would know, but it's just something that I guess it's a different way of looking at the traditional means of, we need to do mindfulness, we need to do meditation. Yeah, okay, but put it in phraseology that first responders understand. A good thing I keep remembering is when I first had something and I was told about this, I went outside and just laid on the grass. And I'm like, righto. And then there was a lady beetle there. And just to watch a lady beetle a few inches away from me while I'm laying in the grass, having a really shit day, but my attention was drawn to watching this beautiful lady beetle, and I took a photo of it. And I'm like, okay, that's a simple mindful tool that you can do without stuff. You just go out, a couple minutes later, you're like, okay. And as I told people before, I think you said it. I can't remember how you said it, but it's like you do one tiny thing a day, and if that's all you do, that's great, because it's better than not doing it. And then at night, you will have a little bit better sleep, because it's akin to your brain. You've got the foot on the pedal the whole way at flat chat. You're going into corners, just barely making it. You're doing all this stuff. You never get to take your foot off the accelerator. When you have a moment of mindfulness, or where you can take a deep breath and you focus on something for even a split second, it takes the gas off the thoughts and it depowers them, or disempowers them for a moment. And you don't notice it instantly, but if you keep doing it every day, those gaps get longer and longer. Your sleep gets better. You gradually feel better. That's my experience and those that I've helped. So that's, in that mindful space, that was really good. And I still use that now, to just try and reset every day. And I had a plan. Oh man, there's a dude that does the savers. It's 6 10-minute steps. He took, I'm not sure if it's Hal Elrod or someone else, but he had a big midlife crisis and a cancer breakdown and all this stuff. And he went researching for the most popular or the most successful people and what they do in their day. And he took a bit out of each of them and made 6 10-minute intervals. And they're called savers. So the first one's silence, 10 minutes silence meditation. A is affirmations. You go through these affirmations. Really not cool on them. I don't like them. Didn't work. V is visualization. So you sit there and you visualize how your day is going to plan out. Sounds a bit woofy. E is exercise. So there's 10 minutes of exercise. R is reading and S is scribing. So like
journaling. Yeah.
So there's an hour, 6 10-minute things, and it has a great impact on a number of people. But like everything, I make it my own. I do my meditation. I do my writing, my journaling, to-do list. That is a really great thing to focus on, a to-do list.
Absolutely.
I thought it was horseshit because my wife was telling me all the time, and I'm like, blah, blah, blah. But you get into the habit and you do the to-do list, and even the most simple things, like get out of the house for 5 minutes, that was tricky. Putting that down on paper and then just, ticking it off at the end of the day.
That dopamine hit, I'm all about it. I tell you what, I've spoken about this particular thing a couple of times. I've been in a couple of group coaching things, and it's the one thing that I would tell people right at the start making a list and put every single thing that you need to do on it, and even put micro lists on it. So if I still do it because I love it. Laundry is separated into put the washing machine on, hang out the laundry, bring the laundry back in, and fold the laundry. So there's 4 little things that I get to tick off that I've done, because in those early days, I think you find the days just sort of go and you don't feel like you've achieved anything at all.
Your partner comes home and goes, what did you get up to today? And I've got no idea.
I don't know.
And you feel useless, don't you?
Yeah, and I had my youngest daughter, Ash, so she was only 1 when I was diagnosed. So obviously I had her to care for, and she filled up a lot of my day, but it was still like that. I don't know what I've done today. And it just felt like I was, I don't know, just useless, really. Like I wasn't achieving anything, which is hard for me, and I'm sure it would be for you too. Very difficult. So making a list and sticking everything on it. And what I started to do was put things that were important to me at the very top and making sure I did those first. And that was usually training, some sort of breathwork, yoga, like any one of those things for that day, had to do it first and foremost, and I still do that now to this day. It's not on a list anymore. It just is a habit, but I would make sure that I would do that first, and then I'm good for everyone else. But a list 100%, like, you got to do it.
It makes such a difference, yeah. And I found I went for a couple of months without doing my morning routine, and I really started to struggle. And even Ali noticed it, and she's like, you need to get back into it. But we've been traveling, like we had to just leave where we were and go traveling to get away from certain triggers. So we've had 18 months on the road in a caravan. It's awesome.
Amazing, yeah.
And sometimes it is awesome, but also depending on where you are, you don't necessarily have the ability to sit down and do stuff for this hour or go and exercise. You've got other things happening. But now it's exactly right. You put yourself first, and you have to put your life jacket on you and the oxygen mask on you before you can deal with anyone else. So
absolutely,
we've come back to that now, and I'm back in my routine and feeling a whole lot better. There's still a lot of stuff going on that you manage, but it's easier to manage.
Okay, usually I start with, but we started our conversation weeks ago, I think, when we had a big chat on the phone. But for everyone that's listening that doesn't know who you are, I usually start with where you grew up and what led you to policing. So would you like to talk a bit about that?
Yeah. So I grew up a bit transient. Dad was in the RAF, so we moved around a bit through Newcastle, Wagga, Melbourne, got to Canberra, spent 7 years in Canberra, then went to Malaysia for 12 months, came back, ended up in Newcastle. And then I guess it's interesting living that kind of, RAF kid transient lifestyle, because on one hand, you don't keep friends. And back then, like 70s, 80s, there was no internet, there was nothing. We had what's called a landline phone that was often on the wall, and you had to turn the thing to dial the numbers. So you couldn't really keep up with friends because it wasn't done. So we were in every place for a couple of years and moved on. But what it taught me is the ability to not stay in one place and have that freedom to be transient and explore and get out and about. There's people that have lived their whole lives in one place, and some of them manage and get out and about. Like my wife now, Ali, she grew up all the time in one place, but also travelled and is not averse to that. But other mates I had when I got to Newcastle, and then I moved out to the Hunter Valley, that was too far for anyone to come and visit. I'm like, this is random. Yeah. But for me, like, we drive 5 hours a day to go and have coffee with someone. It doesn't matter. So I guess that growing up in that different transient space was good for that, and I was happy. Wanted to get into the RAF, didn't get the marks. So then I did a bit of life experience, did some nursing, ended up, I did roadie music stuff and also did nursing. And somehow that path led me through to psych, geriatric, and then psych community nursing. So I ended up doing stuff with docs and crisis intervention teams, dual diagnosis where they've got disability and mental health. And this was largely, I don't mean to diminish this, but a lot of the mental health now is usually drug induced. Back then it largely wasn't. At least the areas I was dealing with wasn't. It was still a problem, but not there. So they were different. The true psychosis forms of the mental illness, because the drug psychosis, as you would have seen, is different in a weird way. I can't explain it, but it is a bit different. There's still illnesses. I'm not negating any of that. So it got to the point where I was doing clinical support, turning up on people's doorsteps, and one bloke that was in a wheelchair and had all these personality disorders, he was at the end of the corridor one day. I turned up, knocked on the door. He said, yep, come in. By the time I opened the door, he'd launched out of his wheelchair and come running at me with a knife. And I'm like, fuck, you can run. So,
who knew? You're in a wheelchair.
Dude, okay, fair enough. Good call. You're cured. And then, shut the door and thought, okay, this is going to be a change. I thought, I need to start doing with this with better armament. So I put an application into the cops, got accepted, and went to Goulburn in 2000.
Sorry, did he stab you?
No. I got the door quicker. One of those things where you're looking at a guy that you've worked with for 12 months, you sort of seen him hobble, thinking, okay, you got mobility issues. And this one day, he was like Gollum chasing a coin. This dude launched, and it would have been good 8 meters, launched out of his chair directly towards me and I've got the door open, just about to step in, and he's launching with this knife, screaming abuse with his hand held up, and I'm like, holy fuck, you're running. So it was that part of, wow, this is really cool. And then I'm like, hang on, he's got a knife and he's coming right for us. So I didn't have a South Park gun, so I just shut the door. And he slammed into it. And that was the end of that visit. I just left. But from there, joined the cops, went to Goulburn, did the academy. Of course, I did amazing. So I had 2 winters there. How much fun is Goulburn in winter? I went down, I was 26 when I joined in, I think, 25, 26. So for me, I'd left a good paying job and I was now on a $12,000 scholarship for 12 months, so $1,000 a month to pay for my time at Goulburn, my books, my study. And, you know, it was like, whoa, this has got to work out. Yes. So I didn't have time to muck around as much I was
the same as that. I felt that pressure. I left, I was in hospitality, but I was getting no other money and I couldn't be there any longer than I was supposed to be there for that reason. Yeah.
You're like, I've got to pass. I'd love to go to Tully's and I'd love to go to the Dingoes and I'd love to go to all these dodgy shit pots. But and back then the Academy bar was open.
No.
Let's not talk about the licensing. But the Academy bar was open. So I was like, okay, I've got limited money. I'll do a little bit here and there, but I just had to study. When everyone else was having a ball, it was kind of like, you know, everyone goes to uni and P's get degrees, but I didn't have that ability. So I came out, did all that, passed that, and then got posted to Holroyd. And I'm like, hang on, I put in Newcastle, Broken Hill and Maitland. What the hell's a Holroyd? Turns out I was Marylands in Sydney.
Okay, so I'm like, I don't know what that is either.
Marylands, just up from, only now one of the busiest commands in Western Sydney.
Yeah.
Holroyd, Marylands, now Cumberland. So I went there, which was awesome because it had everything. It had absolutely everything. Had a great team, great commander, met some great friends that I'm still friends with now. And it was an awesome start to my career there. And I thought, wow, this is so much fun. And 12-hour shifts, I soon learnt that, oh, geez, you need a good recovery after that.
Yes.
And that was my baptism. So it was really good. And it was funny. Someone I still talk to today, a very dear friend, was one of my FTOs. And I think it was within my first 6 months of probation. I was 2 up, not 3. And, you know, standard double beeper, blah, blah, self-harm, locked in a room, da-da-da-da. Rightio, no worries, we'll turn up. Negotiators are coming, tactical's coming, everyone's coming. We turn up there and I say to my buddy, I said, look, I was doing this 12 months ago without a gun. You want me to start it? I'll have a go. Schizophrenic, spoke to the family, schizophrenic, been peeking out, got a knife in there. No one else wants to hurt himself. No worries. So I went in, had a bit of a chat. About 20 minutes later, he agreed to open the door. I came out. He was about to hand me the knife, and little did I know that there was about 15 cops behind me and a negotiator, that suddenly I'm dragged back. They went in. He's on the ground, knife secured, everyone's done. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool.
Good. Thanks, guys. Thanks, everyone. Good job.
It's like a cartoon where a tiny little thing standing up to a massive group of people and they all run away and they go, hey, they're cool. And then you turn around and there's a big gang behind you backing you up. Yeah, that kind of happened. But the negotiator said to me, that was really well done, you know, cool, here's my number. We'd like to have you on the books later on. Okay, cool. My FTO at the time put in a good work report and it's the only one she ever did. And she said, it's the only one I'm ever doing because she put in a good work report that probationary constable Bradley Cooper, six months out or less, had negotiated a siege with an armed man and done really well. What do you think happened when that report went in?
Yeah, what did happen?
She got paraded.
Yeah.
She got paraded and berated for throwing the cannon fodder in, and, you know, that was irresponsible and blah, blah, blah. And then I got called in to answer. I think it seemed the expectation was I was going to throw her under the bus. And I'm like, dude, have you seen my CV? Like, I was doing this for years.
This is actually my wheelhouse. Yeah.
Exactly right. This is my skill.
Yeah.
And I did it. No one got hurt. And why is this a problem? And, oh, no, it's not appropriate. And I'm like, the problem is you're not recognising the police may have prior transferable skills. You only recognise I'm a 26-year-old probationary constable with no experience and therefore shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
And that to me was a really eye-opening moment. And to her as well. She just said, I'm not fucking doing that again.
Yeah, that's it. I don't care how good you are.
Yeah, so we still laugh at that. But yeah, from there I moved around and enjoyed a really good career.
I know. So when I met you, I was in Inverell and I came out as a little
That was
probationer.
I. Yes, you did.
Yeah. And but when you were there, you're in highway patrol. And so, and I know, like from what I know of you, I know how passionate you are about road safety and still today. But is that what led you to highway patrol, or did that come as a result of working within highway patrol? So how did you get there?
Okay, so my goal to join when I joined the cops was Gary Sweet. I was going to join police rescue.
Oh my God, water rats.
Yes. Cool, huh? Water rats rescue.
And actually stingers.
Oh, I didn't see that. I don't think
They were all
so.
undercover. It was pretty bad.
Oh yeah.
And a bit of blue heelers, Maggie Doyle. So yeah,
Maggie.
I'm with you.
Yes.
But yeah, Gary Sweet.
Love it to this day. Yeah, I wasn't in love with Gary Sweet. I just thought, why are they in white overalls doing the dirtiest jobs? And still to this day, it befuddles me, but you still do it. But one of the guys out of my class is good in rescue now. He's still in there and he's loving it, and good to him. But I just found confined spaces and, ropes, cliffs, all that kind of stuff was never going to work for me. So I'm like, all right, cool. And then, from Marylands, I went out to Broken Hill, finally got out to Broken Hill. Loved it out there, and that's a wild place to be. So from Marylands, where you turn up to a disturbance or a blue, and you've got dogs, polair, 6 cars, 100 cops, and all you got to do is stand there and go, mate, don't be a dick.
Yeah.
To Broken Hill, where you've got you, your partner, 1 car, and 500 angry people. Yeah. It was a transition. I used more cans of OC in the first 3 months I was at Broken Hill than I did in any time since my career, anywhere, before or after. And I was only there for 7 years. So the first couple of months were amazing, including I got there in June, and on the 5th of August went to a disturbance that, old mate was typical domestic, and we could see him punching her. Like, he was up, she was down, but he was punching really weird, and the screams weren't correlating with the punch, or something body. I said, mate, come on, what are you doing? And he's gone, you want me to come and get me? Okay, I'm brave, kick a door in, let's go. And I had a probationary constable with me. I wasn't that senior at that time, but I had a probationary constable and a SPO at that time.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And so we've barged in, and here he is just hitting her, and I'm like, righto. So I went through all the tactical things. Long story longer, I tackled him. The knife, he stabbed me in the leg with his knife. Figured out, he's stabbing her. That's why the screams. Okay, fair enough. There's a baby there. There's all this stuff. Comes to a drawdown point where I'm aiming at him. He decides then that everything we've done to him's taken offence, and he threw the knife down. 30 seconds, but I live it over in my head like it takes 10 minutes. So she runs out with the baby. Everyone's good. We arrest him. And that was just bang. Here we are. Welcome to this. So that was kind of a wild experience. And everyone stood up, and then I got a phone call from the then deputy commissioner, and told me who he was, and said, and I'm like, oh yeah, right, yeah, good. Oh, I just want to acknowledge your courageous work and this, that, and the other. I said, oh yeah, that's bloody nice of you, isn't it? Yeah, great. You okay? I said, yeah, mate. Yeah, there's someone, who is it? Is it you? Is it you? Thinking it was one of my mates. I thought they were G'ing me up. And he goes, no, this is Deputy Commissioner Dave Madden. I went, respectfully, sir, can we start this conversation again?
Can you hang up, call me back?
Yeah.
I'll do it better.
And to his credit, he's like, don't worry, I get it all the time. I mean, that was my start to Broken Hill. Within that, there was a lot of opportunities to diversify within the cops, and that's a good thing about the police, I think. Like, my ending was horrible, as many do, but I still value the organisation for what it offers as a career, and for the main ethos of being there to help people, which, we'll take that on another level. So it's still good. And then I'm looking at, okay, I could go detectives. Nah, that's too slow for me, too much sitting around. Could do JERT. No, can't handle those kind of people. They'd end up dead. I'd be like Dexter, that movie Dexter, we showed Dexter. And then highway come up, and I'm like, okay, I'm not really a car guy. I don't like finding people, but let's give it a go. And took it a run, got in 2005 at Broken Hill, and then 2007 transferred to Inverell Highway, where I met you, and then from there went to Joint Traffic Task Force at Huntingwood, what they called the Belter Shelter. It's the Huntingwood Highway Patrol headquarters. Didn't you ever hear that?
The Belter Shelter.
Listeners, you can't see, but Rosie is pissing herself laughing right now.
Oh, that's gold. I love that.
She transferred down to the Highway Patrol headquarters at Huntingwood, massive steel shed that everyone loved. Worked in the Joint Traffic Task Force because that was dealing with heavy vehicles. And in the interim, because when I was on the road with a few of us, we'd actually go and find more than speeding tickets. We'd find drugs, we'd find warrants, we'd find guns, we'd find all this kind of shit. And we got invited down to Melbourne to be part of Operation Catch, Crime and Traffic Connecting on Highways. Very cool. So we started that and brought that back into New South with a few good players. And then, yeah, the highway job gave me the ability to be out and about doing that. And I was also playing in trucks, which most cops weren't doing because they weren't taught about it. You didn't know. The heavy vehicle side of enforcement is so complex that what police officer without any clue is going to go up and talk to a truckie if they don't know what they're talking about? They don't want to be risking, being down-faced, so they just don't deal with it. But I loved it. I really liked it because the amount of shit that I found in trucks and trailers was just, it was a buzz to go and hunt that collection and go, yep, right, I got you off the street, thanks for coming. And, getting a drugged up truckie driving 70-tonne road train off the road, okay, that's cool because a lot of the road carnage is involving truck. Some of it is truck's fault, others is car faults and caravan faults, but there's another story. But yeah, to find that, it was really beneficial. So then within highway, it sort of opened your eyes more to how stupid people are on the road. Mobile phones, no seatbelt, inattention, all that stuff. I've been to that many fatals. There's only one that really smacked me, but the rest of them I've been to, I can recount and go, yep, that happened. And I don't say this callously, but I enjoyed going to those jobs purely to investigate, understand what happened.
Yeah. Because
the family can't be there. They can't see that horrific scene and you don't want them to, but at times they probably should just to understand it. So to be able to be that conduit to go, well, little Johnny or little Jane or big Johnny, big Jane, whoever it may be, this is what happened and this is why. It was their fault or it wasn't their fault and we've dealt with the person who's at fault or we're not. To be able to give that closure, even when I did a lot of in GDs, to be able to give answers was just something significant. And I remember a side tangent, you'd get a telephone message pad or something to go and deliver a death message. And they go, oh, you go and tell person A that person X is dead. All right, what happened? Because you can't just turn up and go, hey they're dead. You got any tea? Coffee and biscuit, Yeah. So it was always that passion of, well, if this was, and I think it was something going way back from that He Ain't Heavy ad or from the training that said, treat these people as if you want your parents to be treated or your grandparents to be treated. Give them that respect. They might be annoying, but to them at that moment, you're in their life because that is the most important thing for them at that time.
And they'll remember that for the rest of their lives as well. Because the majority of people don't have interactions with police.
Yeah, and when they do, it's like, oh, and this could be good or bad for anyone else.
That's
so,
right.
I think that kind of stemmed it off, and then to see how many silly decisions are made that lead to crashes that we have to then go and clean up, and one crash, one death. You've got the first responders on scene, you've got the family, you've got their associated network. It casts such a wide net of impact, not to mention cost if you're shutting down a highway, because then that has a whole different setup, especially in the city. It's so big that it's like, well, you really need to do it. And while I've got the power of a big fast car and all the technology in the world and a big red button to go, woo!
Yeah. Miss that button.
Yeah, I know. But you've got the ability to do something about it. So that was very empowering until the time comes when you don't.
Yeah.
And then that's almost part of an identity crisis. But, you know, it's still sometimes today I get a bit angry that I don't have the big red button, but it's working through it. But I think, yeah, that, like you say, it put into the road safety passion, and I did. Down in Sydney, it's a vastly different story. You work Metro Highway Patrol, you're very unlikely to come across the same person twice. So you can dish fines out and try and do education and enforcement on the way. That person will remember the interaction, but you may not, and you may never see them again. But if you come across not so nice, like a lot of people I've met, and you're just being a robot and an asshole, then that person is going to remember that interaction, and their goat will be up next time they meet a cop.
That's right.
And if that's a nice cop, like me, I frequently got people that were angry, and you just had to try and chill it down. It affects it, but I can see how you keep getting stuck in it. So yeah, in the country areas, it was good because you kind of had an ability to make an impact on the younger generation or the drivers to go, all right, I'll give you a bit of leg rope and it's up to you what you do with it. Here's a warning, but you do it again, I'm taking your license. So it was a really close ability to work with these people to try and get them to comply. If not, you take their license. And there's been 2 occasions in my career that, yeah, one of those I've ended up at their fatal, and the other one was involved in a fatal as a driver, but still didn't accept blame because they got away. They lived. So you're like,
wow,
it's a very weird psyche that you can have an endpoint to a point. You can have an impact to a point, but it's only as much as that other person lets you.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's like, well, yeah, okay, I can have all this stuff going on in my life and it's impacting me. And if I project that onto someone else, it's only if they want to accept it that I'm going to project it. So the same with receiving. If people have got all their stuff going on, I don't need to accept it for them to dump it off. You can still wash it out. So I don't know, it's a very deep, different sort of tangent on that. But we'll go back to the career side. So from Huntingwood, yep, we did a few trips, did a few truck enforcements, had a great time. There was a lot of potential there, but at the time, I'll just say that it was a very different and unique environment that caused many of us to leave.
Yeah.
Better now, much better now, but there were certain individuals that are since out. It just made it really tricky, and there was a lot of egos there, but the capacity to do something in that road safety space was huge. So then I was on the sergeant's list. I think I was around 60 or 70 out of 500 or something ridiculous. And I really wanted a highway sergeant's job, but I was told in no uncertain terms that I'm not going to get one because the people that make the decisions were in that same building, and I'd obviously stirred a pot. So I'm like, right, cool. Things were coming to a climax, and I was like, all right. I spoke to my wife, I said, all right, here's 2 options. Where should I go? She goes, which one are you not on the road? And I said, this one. She goes, take that. Oh, okay, fair enough. Because she just thought, it's time, get off the road. So I did. So, yeah, I took a team leader spot at Penrith Radio. And look, that was amazing. Absolutely loved it. Seeing the other side of how radio worked was really, really good. Very dynamic, but a lot of civilian influence in terms of the staff. The operators, a lot of them are civilian. There's not many police. And in terms of the upper management and police link, PAL, all that stuff, that's all mega civilianized. So you're in the corporate bubble, but you've got a lot of civilian influence, which was really, really strange because you've never had that influence before. But yeah, that's where I did a couple of years, absolutely loved it, had some great people there, still communicate with them. They're awesome. I feel I did a lot of good work along with a lot of other people in there to keep it running and to improve it, while all the system wanted to do was keep shutting it down. So that made it hard. And then I got an opportunity to be an organiser with the Police Association. And due to my history, I got put through specialists. So I had Traffic and Highway Patrol, Police Transport Command, which is like the buses and prisoner movements, and radio group. So what that meant was I was the main port of call as an organiser on the ground to go and look after about 2,800 members.
Was that full time?
Yeah,
full-time?
Yeah, full-time secondment. So you're basically still employed and paid by the cops, but you're working for the Police Association. And they keep doing that to refresh people in there. Some of them have got full-time roles, but I'd always wanted to do it. Since 2008 campaign, I wanted to be an organiser. And they said, no, you've got to move to Sydney. And I said, that'll never happen. And then finally, when I got there, I'm like, righto, let's have a go.
Yeah.
So about 2,800 members spread across the state. I had a active caseload of at least 60 members from different areas, and geez, I put on some Ks in 2 years. It was amazing, and that was awesome because I got to do my providing support side of things. So I got to help people out in that role, and then time came. It was like, right, we're going to look at a change. So finished up with them and then went back to radio. And then from there, everything kind of went downhill. Many changes, many problems. Let's just say very similar to most of your other people. Got burnt, got micromanaged. Too many things happened at once. And I was just, the bucket was full. Like you had to empty it out and I couldn't go anymore. So that's when I bailed out. And after that, several hours with the doctor, I didn't go back. So that was there.
Did you recognize it yourself initially, or was it Ali that sort of said something to you, or how did it come about? When did you notice it?
I recognized it, and for about 6 months, I'm like, I can manage this. Probably longer. And then as it drew closer, I'm applying for jobs in, Resilience New South Wales, director positions that I met all the criteria for. I'm applying for jobs in Transport for New South Wales at all the different hubs all over the joint. I was just looking for equal level jobs to get the hell out and just move across. And one of my other mates did that. He was struggling, but he got out and went to another agency, and he's doing very well and he's happy with it. And I'm like, hey, that worked for you? That's cool. Didn't work for me. Obviously, things happened in a way. It's one of those things, I think, that you are where you're meant to be when you're meant to be there. And this was one of those, moments, I think, that as hard as it was something that put me in a position to be doing what I am, which would otherwise have been different. So it's like, it was a shitstorm, but I'm thankful for it. So I kind of recognised it, but I didn't want to acknowledge it. I'm like, no, I can deal with this. I'm looking after my staff. I don't get sick. I'm good. I need to look after them. And it was almost to the point where I was too looking after them because I didn't want to face my shit.
I think that's one of the first signs of burnout, is when your productivity and the way you work is peaking. And you think, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm doing all these things.
It's pretty trippy, but I went down kicking and screaming, and it wasn't until that second doctor's appointment where I actually figured out, I could go back, but I need help. I need time off the track. So, like I tell everyone that I talk to about having time off, is just because you put in a 902 or you take time off work totally unfit for work doesn't mean you never will be fit again. And it doesn't mean you're instantly discharging. It just means that right now, if you feel like this, your hypervigilance is out of control, your blood pressure is up, your pulse is over 100 when you're sitting resting, your thoughts keep going when, for some reason your family are distant from you because you don't remember yelling at them, even though you didn't mean to yell at them. It's just your reaction because you're fighting in your head. And that was happening with me at home in my past marriage that I feel dreadful about, because there was times then that happened when I had my back injury that I was angry, I was in pain, and you're not taking it out on, you're not addressing your anger at your family or anyone else or your colleagues. You're addressing it just because it's all going on in your head and you're screaming in your head. So someone will come in and go, "G'day, how you going?" You go, "Oh, what do you mean by that? What do you mean by that?" It's like, and they're like, "What the hell's wrong with you?" Oh, now there's something wrong with me, is it? Oh, look at yourself, my friend. Come on. And it's like, this is stupid. So if that kind of stuff's happening, and the good old Dr. Kevin Gilmartin book.
Oh, I read it too.
That is an epiphany moment, because it's like he's been sitting in your lounge room watching it. So if all that stuff's happening, it's like, you need time off the track. You need to empty the bucket, and the only way to do that is to stop filling it up. So that was interesting. But now we have a recovery that has led to increased health, increased awareness and understanding of mindfulness and being in the moment, and still practicing meditation. I'm shit at it, probably as bad as I am at yoga, because I'm about as flexible as a stick. But it's been good now. And then EML, a lot of people have a lot of bad things to say about them. EML at the start of my journey was problematic. And I think the first couple of months were just because nothing moves quickly.
Yeah.
You know, and you put in your 902, you put in your doctor's certificate, and you're sitting there spending 24 hours a day wondering about yourself and what they're going to do with you. Where the people that you want answers from are dealing with thousands of different people, and they don't have time to get back to you, and they're still trying to Jenga where you fit into this. So it took a couple of months of high anger and frustration before I got settled with a caseworker, and then we were able to move forward. But since then, I've had nothing, touch wood, but good luck with them and good caseworkers. So that's been a very good experience in order to move forward, have my treatment approved, have things repaid and all that kind of stuff. So that's been really cool. Then they went to a point where they're like, all right, well, what do you want to do? I said, I don't know. But because I've been very active in my recovery, I'm like, I'm open to suggestions. I'm open to look at stuff. So they put me through vocational assessment. And this was only in the first 12 months, I think. And that vocational assessment was really ironic because my personality must have still been shining through. Something was there anyway, but the vocational assessment came back and he's gone, right, I've got some great careers that we can look at for you in the future. One of them's a teacher. And I'm like, excuse me, you want me to be a teacher with like kids and shit? What the hell is wrong with you? You could do vocational stuff at TAFE. I said, what am I going to teach them? How to get out of jail? What the fuck are you talking about? And he's gone, another one I've got is disability support worker. I've gone, are you kidding me? I did that before the cops. What are you talking about? So that ended quickly.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it kind of picked up on my desire to help and desire to teach, which I'd done through the cops as an FTO driver development and wanting to help people and do all that kind of stuff. You know, eventually years later, we did the same kind of thing and it came out different, more akin to what I was looking for. It's like, well, yeah, I want to help people drive safely. I want to teach people that can't otherwise do it, like, you know, the disadvantaged or someone that doesn't have the opportunity to go and do it easily. I want to help them be able to learn how to drive safely so that they don't become another statistic. I don't have my big red button anymore, but I do have an opportunity now to try and help people one at a time reduce the road toll by increasing that awareness. And I thought, if that's what I can do, I can do it. So yeah, a few assessments and a few different conversations later, they supported me to do my driving instructor certification. And then I've started my own business now, did a bit of training in Tasmania while I was there, which was really good because that paired in with a driver mentor scheme. So certain councils down there have volunteer driver mentors where people that don't have the money for lessons or don't have cars, they've got their own cars that they provide mentors who aren't instructors, but they just help them get the hours up. And, you know, as a result, now I've keyed in with that council and I'm providing them additional support to strategize and to format lesson plans for them. So
that's such a great initiative.
Yeah, and there's one in Queensland, PCYC Breaking the Cycle. They have it up there where the students go through with a driving instructor first, get assessed, get a plan, and then the mentors continue that work. It's free for the student. PCYC funds it, and it's awesome. So I've done volunteer stuff with them as well. And now I've got my own business that on a slow burn, once we get back home to Tweed Heads, that's where I'm going to be starting really kicking it. And I've got bookings waiting there with people that, you know, friends or other people that I've helped in a volunteer capacity are now wanting their friends to come in because, you know, I guess, I don't know, there's some, I don't know what it is. I don't know. There's a couple of people I've helped that are multicultural, other with anxiety disorders. And just for some reason, for me, it's really strange and cathartic because on the road myself, I might be prone to a little bit of road rage, anger, yelling, screaming, not crashing and running people off the road. I might get a little close. I've got a big four-wheel drive, so I might get a little close and then I'm like, no, back off, 2-second gap at least. But when I'm in the left seat and I'm mentoring or teaching someone, stuff can go on and it's like that dude in the Blues Brothers. He's teaching the learner and just tells her to calmly extend a hand out the window and put up the finger, and he's just super calm in the middle of a rat race. And that's me. Yeah. I'm like, how did this happen? Wow, I need this to be my calm session now. So ironically, yeah, teaching people that don't know how to drive and are trying to kill you really calms me down. It's quite amazing.
I think when you told me well, actually, when we reconnected on LinkedIn, I saw that that's what you were doing. My first initial thought was, of course you're doing that. Like,
I think you said that to me as well.
how could you not? How could you do anything else? Because you were
Mm.
my FTODD, and you were so calm, like you just said, with me.
You already knew how to drive. Well,
Well, I could move a vehicle. I don't know if I knew how to drive.
because you only had your little car, didn't you? And then you jumped into these Rangers and shit.
We had a little Magna. We had a Sylvia before that. But I just remember you being so calm and just explaining things in different ways so I was better able to understand, because you know, vehicles and all that sort of stuff is a little bit foreign to me. It wasn't something I was familiar with. Like, yes, I got my driver's license, but that's as far as it went, pretty much.
Yeah, and when you got it, were you taught how to change a tire, or were you taught what the symbols inside the car meant? Were you taught how to look at the oil and stuff?
I was. My dad made
okay,
me
cool.
learn that sort of stuff. And that's actually something that I'm quite passionate about. So when my kids, which is coming up real quick now, start to learn.
So quick.
Yeah, Alex is nearly 14. Yeah, and I've said to him, I've got a friend who's a driving instructor, and we're going to go up there, and you're going to drive with him because he taught me how to drive. But yeah, I think you are definitely in the place that you're supposed to be in, because you're an incredible teacher. And I think
thanks, Rose.
it's more than just knowing what to do. It's learning about the people that you're teaching and putting things in a way that they're going to understand and then implement it. And I think you're perfect for that.
Oh, thank you. Because that's the aim. It's everyone learns differently. And I've found that with trying to explain stuff, my head often doesn't work. And it's like, okay, I've got to try and explain stuff so that makes sense to you of what I'm trying to transfer, or okay, how do you learn? And if you're not understanding this, how do we get it to, and you can see that light bulb moment when it clicks and go, cool, right, we're getting somewhere. And the joy for me of, you know, even with you and you know, getting that, okay, I'm trying to teach you this, and then you do it and you're like, yes, you got it, it's working, master that, let's go. It's kind of a thrill. It's the dopamine, it's good. But in Tasmania, there was one paid student and two under the mentor program that all sat their assessment on the one day, and I was there for it. I actually took it on my birthday to go and do it, and they all passed first go. Or one, it was her 5th time going, and since working with me, I'd volunteered my time through my business and through the mentor, and did about 6 hours, 7 hours with her. And it was that one thing that, because she'd already failed so many times, she had this voice in her head, it's going to happen again. God, what are you going to do? And it caused her so much anxiety that before she could even address the assessment, she was already 9 out of 10 at anxious level. So it was about, she said one thing that helped me to understand. She said, it's this voice in my head that keeps saying whatever it was. And I said, all right, well, we're about to go in and meet the assessor. So what I propose is you tell the voice in your head to go and have a coffee, and I'll check in on it every now and then, and not allowed to return until you come back, so you can just focus on what you need to do. And she came back in tears, and I'm like, oh no, what happened? She was in tears because she passed. And even the assessor was like, wow, you've done such a great job. You look at this, there's no marks on here other than positive ticks. And I'm like, oh, cool, that's good. It was that one thing of, I think there was others, but being able to get in and go, right, what's it going to take for you to be able to hook onto this and then make a difference? And yeah, I've heard back from her since, and she's continuing to drive and interested in more safe tips and that. And that for me, it's like, well, I don't want to teach people that just want to pass their test.
Yeah.
Plenty of other people out there do that. And they go through the motion. Here's how you pass the test. Here's the route they're going to go down. Here's what you need to do. It's cookie cutter approach.
This is what you need to do to pass the test.
100%. Yeah.
This is an open book test.
Yes. and they're almost like just driving on, if they fail, how? Because they've just practiced it for 100 hours, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm like, no, I'm going to tell you what you need to drive, and some of those will be assessed in the test. But we're not going on their path. We're going to go and drive wherever we drive, and you're going to learn how to do it safely, because you need to be able to deal with situational awareness, crash avoidance, space, and the unexpected. And Peter Fraser from the Sarah Foundation, Safer Australian Roads and Highways, met him at one of the Police Association conferences. He lost his daughter Sarah to a vehicle incident, not accident, they're never accidents, distracted driver. And he's been on a campaign ever since, and he's a legend. Peter Fraser, he's through the Sarah Foundation, they've got the hashtag drive so others survive. It's about taking accountability for how you drive, almost like a safe driving policy. No, we won't go there. It's taking accountability for how you drive. So if you're screaming along the road and there's traffic in front slowing down, are you going to try and get around them, or are you just going to slow down, check your mirrors and be aware of what's going on? It's a different mindset. So yeah, I very much take that ethos into my training, and I teach my students or anyone I'm helping to have situational awareness. Like same with the cops, you need your situational awareness, not to a hypervigilant level like we did, but you need to know, you need to know what's going on.
Yeah, it's definitely like a holistic approach that you're taking in teaching, like you said, not just this is what you need to do and then you'll pass.
Yeah,
what you need to do to be a good driver on the roads and drive to the best of your ability and safety for the whole community, not just passing a test.
Exactly. Yeah, it's about you driving so others survive, because there's a lot of accidents caused by people where others are impacted.
Yeah.
And you see people that are distracted or whatever. It's like driving has become almost autonomous now compared to when I started driving. The lane assist will put you back in. There's cruise control. There's brake assist that if you get too close, it'll do it itself. There's so much time for updating Facebook and TikTok now while you're sitting on the M4 that people aren't. Driving is no longer driving. You're a steerer. You got the rubber ring and that's about it. You're not driving as you used to, where you are concentrating on what's happening 5 cars ahead or 100 meters ahead or a kilometer ahead. No one's looking at that anymore. It's all this stuff. So it's about I can't change the world. Yeah. I have the road toll is going to continue to rise because people are impatient. It's society we live in now. It's the vibe. It's the castle, it's what it is. But if I can have an impact one-on-one to help maybe that, much like the ripple effect of a fatal, one person dies, the first responders are affected by the first ripple, then their families of those, the friends of those, the business colleagues, the ripple extends, it diminishes, but it still extends. If I can help one person to drive safely based on what I've experienced in my life and my career and seeing how that affects people, not using scare tactics, but basically using the techniques to go, well, here's what you need to be safe. You want to learn what you need to do a test? Go and find someone else. You want to learn how to survive on the road and keep others safe? Come to me. So yeah, that's been a really strong ethos, and hopefully that will ripple effect out to them as passengers, as other drivers, to their family. I've now started connecting with RIDER, which is Road Safety Education provides RIDER, Rotary Youth Driver Awareness. They go into schools for year 10 to 12.
Yeah, good.
And they do day-long things where you've got 30-minute sessions. They show speed and stopping, put the eye in drive, technology, mind matters, road choices, all these things that help that age of kids that are in the very influential space, teenagers that are about to or have got their license, teaches them about, it's not necessarily cool if you're in a car with a mate that wants to show off to go through a red light. Like it's about thinking about all these factors. You don't need to race. You need to be safe and bring back to what are you doing? You're in a car to get somewhere. You're driving. You have a purpose. The phone can wait. The stuff can wait. Distraction can wait. So yeah, all that really aligns with what I'm doing now, and I'm really happy to be doing it. And as I said, like we moved out up to Tweed Heads in the middle of COVID while I was going through this transition, because my wife got work up there, and I did try to get transfers up there, but just everything went against me. Things didn't work. So it's like, things happen for a reason. Here we are. So we're going to be back there mid-October, and that's when we're going to be there for 6 to 12 months at least before maybe travelling again. But I can take what I do with me, as I've proven in Tassie, and I can go and support other areas, and I want to do a lot of it as like philanthropically, to be able to give back, to give free lessons to people at times, to do that stuff to help those who need it. And of course, people I know or other cops might get a discount code here and there. We'll see. But it is fulfilling, and it is it's given me a new purpose, because whilst I love not working and I'm grateful for the entitlements that I've got, that I believe I've worked hard for in terms of the insurance space. They keep us going without me needing to work. But there comes a point in the recovery where I think you also need a sense of self.
100%.
And that's where I got to, who am I? You know, I went through massive identity crisis. I tried to grow my hair long again because I had that when I was younger. That quickly turned into a bad idea, so I cut it short again. But I stopped shaving because the years I'd shaved, and I'm like, yeah, cool. I had earrings when I was, you know, pre-fire brigade and pre-cops. So I put my earrings back in. I'm like, yeah, I'm cool. Who the fuck am I?
Yeah.
I was still going through this identity crisis. And look, to this day, I'm still like, what's my outfit? What's my look? I don't know. I got my earrings in. I shave sometimes. I don't shave others. I'm still going through it. But at the basis of it, the thing came down to wanting to give back and wanting to help. So we started volunteering Meals on Wheels once a week. And that was, some days I'd stay in the car. I was a driver because I just was having a day, and Ali would go out and deliver and say good day. Other days I really took joy in every day. I took joy in it. Don't get me wrong, even just being there, because I knew I was doing something to help someone. But then going and seeing these people, and you might be the one visitor they have for the week, and to spend 10 minutes having a chat was really, it was like, oh, good. I feel I've got that warm fuzzy again. You know, I can't go and rescue kittens and babies and lock up bad guys, but I can go and help people in a different way. So I found something of starting to do. And then I found the volunteer driver mentoring. Doesn't exist in New South Wales. PCYC runs a different course. There's nothing in New South, but Tasmania, not sure Victoria, Queensland, they operate it. And it is really good. And I recommend it. PCYC, if you're in Queensland, PCYC Queensland, Breaking the Cycle, reach out to any of their clubs that run it. There's a heap of clubs online.
I'll link to it in the show notes.
Yeah, cool. Because we're working with Children Check that they help refund. It's basically cost neutral. You volunteer your time, and there's plans set up that you follow, and you're helping young people, not necessarily always kids, but young people, disadvantaged people that wouldn't be able to do it otherwise. They've got issues, socioeconomic, family issues, anxiety issues, a multitude of issues that they're not mainstream and they cannot get their license the other way. But the point of breaking the cycle is if they get their license, they break out of possibility of drug use, homelessness, crime. They can get their license, they can get a job, they can move forward. And again, that's just that saving the world one person at a time thing that I'm into, you know. So yeah, that's really valuable. Anyone in Tassie, Learn a Driver Mentor program is awesome. In Tasmania, they hook up with a number of different councils. My favourite, only because I love the area, was Break a Day Council at St Helens on the east coast.
Yeah,
Absolutely love it there. And a lot of the towns in Tassie, like Tassie has sort of 2, maybe 3 kind of cities that aren't like Sydney cities, but they're big. And that's Launceston, Hobart, and to a point Devonport. The rest of the place is the tiny town. And so not everywhere has driving instructors.
no, they wouldn't.
Don't have access to that, where there's a lot of driving instructors on the mainland here, but not all of them are necessarily teaching you to be safe. They're teaching you to pass the test. And I mean no disrespect for any of them, please don't get me wrong. Everyone's got their niche and everyone's got their way. My passion is to help people at a cheap price or free to get their license. So I've got to cover my cost, of course. I do it in their car because I don't yet have a car. I looked at the work injury damages, you know, where you go through and give up your entitlements for a lump sum payment. And I was told, because at the time I was just like, oh, yeah, I could do with some cash, you know, I reckon we'd be right. And I was told, oh, yeah, you'll be able to get this figure. And we did the math and thought, yeah, we can live on that if we have no more EML and a reduced TAL. We can live on that. That'll be good. But the struggle that caused, but also I think we started negotiations in the initial phase just when this announcement of the TPD was coming in.
Yeah.
The lawyers were like, all right, we might have been up here. Now we're down here on the bottom and we're going to offer you lowball. And over 2 months, they continued to lowball. And it was causing me so much distress thinking, I just need this figure because then, and this was a kicker for me, I need this figure because then I'm pretty sure I can survive, but then I can work freely without being capped and having to subsidise or not subsidise. You report your income and TAL takes it off you. So you're working for the dole basically. if I get this payout, I can then have enough money to put into my company and I'll be able to fly to Tasmania and help them. And I'll be able to get a car and I'll be able to support these people and I have the money to do free lessons and blah, blah, blah. And I'm sitting there at a time where I was trying to manage all this disappointment when I pulled the pin. And it was just like, I wasn't doing that for me at all. I was doing it to help others. And that really kicked me in the guts to go, oh, shit, I nearly sacrificed a lot just to get a little bit of coin to, and it was going to be like 250 grand to sacrifice everything and walk away from them. And I thought, yeah, that's cool. We can do that. And I'm like, no, I can't. Because most of that I wanted to put into helping others, which, while that's very amicable, wasn't going to help me.
No, that's right.
The whole process took me down a path that it was when I had to cancel on you last time. There was so much of that, so much of other stuff going on that I'm just like, hang on a minute. I'm not miraculously cured like I thought I was. I'm still carrying residue here, and maybe this isn't the best decision. So I respectfully told the solicitor that. He acknowledged it, and I haven't heard from him since. And I went back to my normal caseworker, and we're moving along happily ever after. So that's a different segue.
I think working through damages is a big decision to make. It's a lot. I personally said no thanks, fine thanks. And my solicitor advised that way anyway because of my age. But I just could not imagine going through that process.
Well, the first process for me, and I don't know how many times the bar changed, but the first one was an informal settlement conference where lawyers talk to lawyers, they spitball some numbers, and at that point he was expecting to get a decent number. And that was it. No court, no nothing.
Yeah.
And then if you want to go to the next stage of negotiation, there's 2 negotiation stages, I understand. You have to start doing IMEs, independent medical examination, which I'd already done, but I did another one. You have to get a statement prepared, which I'd already done, but I did another one. I didn't do another one because I said, I don't know if I can go it. And then you have to meet their terms of negligence. It's all about negligence.
Negligence.
And this is the kicker. And if you do put this in some way, and anyone does listen thinking about it, the negligence for me was I had an issue with a person. That issue was reported through the chain of command all the way up to Deputy Commissioner. Everyone in that line acknowledged that that individual was wrong for the role and was causing harm, yet no one did anything with it. Further harm was caused, including to myself. I tapped out. That person was then made a HR manager.
It sounds about right, doesn't it?
Oh, I'm sure no one will be surprised, other than people that aren't in the cops, because everyone else will tell they go, they did what?
That's a promotion.
Story checks out.
Yeah.
But to the lawyers, that doesn't meet their level of negligence. They're talking about how could they, the police, keep you safe in an unsafe situation. I'm like, well, that is an unsafe situation. No, because then that's these famous words that cause chills. Reasonable management action. Oh, God, I hate that phrase. So they look at it differently. And I'm sitting there going through all of my major points that are most recent, thinking they all attribute, in my mind, to negligence and failure to act. But in the lawyer's mind, not so much. And the barrister said, no, what about, were you ever not given a bulletproof vest when you asked for it? No. Oh. Were you ever shot? No. Come close. Were you ever stabbed? Yes. What did they do about that? They provided me training. I remember the old wax on, wax off knife defense.
I do, very much.
But this was something unavoidable. I didn't know he had a knife. He swung around, got me in the leg. Lucky he didn't get me in the gut, and I nearly shot him. Oh, no, well, that doesn't really count. I'm like, how can you hold the police negligible when they provide you tactical options?
Yeah.
And if you don't use them, it's your fault. And so I started to spin thinking, maybe this isn't me. And I thought, well, if we get to the negotiations, we might get a decent figure and I won't have to go to court. But each step is more legal fees.
Yeah.
And it's a no-win, no fee, providing, and this was only my case, maybe the same, providing if they give you an acceptable offer, like a number that you'd agreed on, and they say, we've got it, and you don't take it, you risk
their fees.
You risk defaulting, and then you've got to pay their legal fees anyway. I'm sure they don't do that unless it's a really stupid thing. But then the next step is doubling, tripling, quadrupling. And they said, oh, yeah, and when we get to hearing, I said, whoa, what? They said, oh, yeah, when we get to hearing, it'll probably be 2 or 3 weeks. You'll be on the stand for about 5 days. I'm like, I've been in local, district and Supreme Court as a police officer, and I am happy to sit in that box and be grilled and keep my cool, because that's the suit. You know,
Yeah.
I'm not acting as Brad Cooper, the whatever I am. I still don't know. I'm acting as senior constable, sergeant, whatever, Brad Cooper, the officer. And this is my evidence to give as an officer of the law. So I can deal with that totally different. And the lawyers that do it, oh God, I've been berated by some. And you sit there and smile, and then they get cheeky, and then the judge asks you, and they say, well, I've answered this question 6 times. He's just rephrasing it. What do you want me to do, Your Honour? Yeah, all right. So you get a bit of a win, and it's a game. And
Yeah.
But to risk being on that, I call it a stage, justifying my credibility personally, I just thought, oh, I know my story and I can give it, but I don't think I'm going to get out of there without jumping the bench and punching a solicitor, because I know they will be in it to win it, and they'll be in it to defame me, discredit me. And while they can say as much as they like about stuff I've done or haven't done as a police officer, they're not attacking me. It's like a blind face talking to a blind face, like they're soulless almost. It's just, you know, they somehow sleep at night by attacking, but they also dissociate by saying, no, I'm attacking the witness, not the individual. I don't know.
Yeah.
I could not have gone through that, and I made that clear at the start. There's no way I could handle that on my own personal life. I would end up launching, getting angry and jumping. So, long story longer, that was out for me. So,
yeah. You was talking just before, you know, how you said you thought you'd been miraculously cured. I'm still battling a little bit of laryngitis. And I had this epiphany a couple of years ago now, but even very recently. So I'm really late to the party with the 66 and 67 stuff, and I've just had my first IME, and it was the one that the solicitor organised. And I've been through about 6 weeks worth of depression because of it, and just knowing, and anxiety, obviously, because it was coming up, and I thought I'd put it all to bed. And I didn't think I'd ever have to talk about it again in the way that you have to when you go through that sort of a interview, I guess it is.
But it is difficult because, well, from my experience, it was going through some traumas. And
very much so.
Relive it. And then you're talking on a scale of how much help do you need going to the bathroom?
Yeah.
You're like, well, this is not my worst day. This is, and then you sort of, you're stuck with the combatants of reliving your trauma and going, Jesus, I'm really dysfunctional.
Yeah. That realization that, no, actually, when you've asked me all these questions, I've realized now that I'm not as great as I maybe outwardly project. And it's fucking hard, you know? And it's the biggest roller coaster. I was talking to a friend of mine from college actually yesterday. She's amazing and she's out now too. But it's such a roller coaster, the journey. And, you know, it's 6 years now, and it's, I think, 2019, so it's 5 years since I discharged. It's definitely a roller coaster, and I think when you learn that, you can be a lot kinder to yourself in your journey as well. Like, okay, I'm having a bad day, week, 6 weeks, you know, but it'll get better again. You just got to keep putting in that effort. So I don't think we're ever going to be you're not going to be what you were before. But I think that working on yourself and realizing that you just keep trying to be the best version of yourself now, that's where it's at.
Yeah, I agree. That's a very good point. And I think every day, like you wake up, here's some more woo-woo, you wake up with gratitude. You write down that you're grateful for the fact that you woke up. Yeah. You're grateful for whatever, sun, rain, indifference. It doesn't matter. You're here and you get an opportunity again. It's about opportunities. And I don't as much anymore, but it still does ruminate, but it doesn't affect me as much about, well, I used to be able to manage all this and do this and, you know, 12 hours dynamics and then go to the gym and then do this and then do that. Now I you know, if I've got one appointment in a day, it takes me 3 days to prepare and 4 days to recover. Yeah. Like this. It's like, you sort of sit there and go, how is this? Because you go through days thinking, oh, this is great. And your partner goes, oh, yeah, we're cured, no worries. And then you suddenly have a wig out in a shopping centre or in a public area, or you just sort of have this sudden attack and go, sorry, I need to go and hide in the dark for 10 minutes. No, I'm not being rude. I'm just trying not to go mad. So it's very odd. But the more I learn about the post-traumatic stress, the trauma effects, it's perfectly normal.
Yeah.
And that was one of my key phrases that I have to sometime, and whilst very good, Elliot, telling me this, give yourself some of your own medicine. Tell yourself what you tell others. Okay. So the phrase was, it's a perfectly normal reaction to a dysfunctional situation.
Yeah.
Or similar. So yeah, whatever's happening, you're having a normal reaction to an abnormal situation. There you go. And that was one of the things that is like, yeah, okay, cool. So I'm having a panic and there's nothing to panic me, but there obviously is something. It's a normal reaction for an abnormal situation. So yeah, those kind of things sit in there.
I think like your journey is pretty recent. I think like leaving the cops only a couple of years ago, and I can even see that your mindfulness practice has helped in the fact that you are able to see when these things are happening for you. A lot of people struggle to see that until it's really, till they have blown their top and lost it at their kids or their partner or something like that. But you're able to, with that mindfulness, that's a part of that practice, is to have the mindset that you're like, oh, okay, this is actually happening right now. I need to go and sit in the dark for 10 minutes. People don't do that,
You just need to take the time out. Yeah, you just need to take a breath. And one of the biggest mantras that I saw that I still struggle to hold on to is, instead of reacting, I stop, I breathe, I observe, I respond.
Yes.
So don't react, respond. Because most of mine has been reaction. You just instantly boom. And instead of listening to think of what you're going to say, listen to understand what's being said, because then you can take a breath and think about how you're going to respond. So those little changes are very deep in that. And I've always been, when I went off with this, because I mean, I skipped over it, but back in 2009, I was assaulted in Inverell. Went to help a general duty crew with a brawl. They were one up. Long story short, turned to a shit fight, as they do. The continuing brief matter turned to hell. Everyone went their own ways. I left affected, but I ended up being off work for ages with a massive back injury because I got trodden on, attacked, stomped, all this other kind of stuff. I was wearing a covert ballistic vest, the undercover armour at that stage that I promoted strongly, even when it was hot. And I think that did save me from more significant skeletal damage. But after many months of treating me through work cover for L5S1 disc prolapse, I was only getting worse. And I was getting worse to the point where I was not sleeping very well. I was in 7 out of 10 pain that had spiked to 12 out of 10, depending on how I moved, couldn't walk properly. It continued to deteriorate. And I was angry. I was angry at the system. I was angry because I was in pain. I was angry because I was so tired and couldn't get sleep. I started medicating with alcohol strongly and NDEP, I think it was, to try and sleep, to just try and get some rest and pain-free. Nothing worked. And it did get to a very dark place where I decided it was not worth it anymore. And this was on the back of identifying that, I was so angry in my head that any time at that stage I was with my now ex-wife and her kids, whom I loved and met in Broken Hill, and they were awesome, but we're dissociated now, unfortunately. But they would be there, or I'd come home, or, filled with these expectations of what I was going to find because I was already angry, and I'd go to treatment or come back and the washing up hadn't been done, or the place is messy, and I'd just blow up. And these poor kids are going, what the fuck is going on here? And they're barking back at me. And then I'm like, hang on, I shouldn't be doing this. So I'm angrily storming out of the house, embarrassed at what's happened, but yet they're continually just getting this angry Brad. And it happened, and long story short, that whole dissolved and I left. But I never got to truly talk to the kids or that wife about how it was feeling for me and how dreadful I felt about it and how sorry I am that I let it affect me like that. Instead, I got into my car and went to a drive to where I headed out on the highway with one intention. And I ended up stopping at the spot where one of my most significant fatals was. That young girl died. She was returning back to her town after coming shopping for a wedding dress and was texting a partner on the way home, went off the side of the road, overcorrected, got T-boned and dead, gone. So that I stopped right at that point and just burst into tears at her cross. And there was a little voice saying, you can't do this, you don't have a will. And I went, oh, righto. So I went home with the intent of making a will and getting back on the road again.
Go. Yeah.
And I got home, and not long later, a good friend then, Captain Chris Millard, he was with the Salvation Army.
Yeah,
I don't know if you met him.
Yeah, I did many times.
He rocked up out of the blue, and he's at my gate, and I'm going, what are you doing here? Oh, mate, I needed to come and see you, mate. I needed to come and see you. I said, why? What's wrong? He goes, I don't know, but we need to have coffee. Let's come and sit down. And I'm like, no, I'm busy. No, come on. Let's come and sit down, mate. You want to come in? No, come inside. And that was a pivotal moment for me, because if he hadn't turned up, I don't know what other intervention would have occurred. But yeah, that kind of happened. And I told my injury management person about that. And then that changed the course of my treatment. They suddenly thought, oh, this is bad. I got a new treatment review, and they found that whilst I did have disc damage from the prolapse and the disc damage, all the aggravation of the attack and then ongoing treatment had destroyed my sacroiliac joint. So women often have that when they are pregnant and give birth. It's instead of the horizontal padding between your vertebrae, you drop down to the sacrum, and then this is the vertical cartilage or whatever it is between the hips that allow the hip rotation. So apparently I had some never seen before extreme amount of hip rotation from the SIJ. And, you know, I was still angry, but they promised, yep, we're going to put you on this new program. They flew me to Sydney once a week for 2 days of physio. And this was on the back of, I backstep a bit, I was asking for help, so they sent me into another orthopaedic specialist, which if they can't break it, screw it, fuse it, then they don't know about what to do. So he just said, we've got to fuse your spine and it may help. Well, that's not a real encouraging diagnosis there, Doc.
Yeah.
So I left there bad, and then they've done this with the physio, and I'm like, yeah, righto, no worries. So started flying to Sydney every week. Took me forever to get from Inverell to Armidale Airport because I have to stop with the pain. And then flying down, within 2 weeks, I was noticing a difference. I'm like, cool. But I was active in my recovery. Like, normally you go and see a physio, they give you exercises. You go, yeah, no worries, I feel better now, stop.
Yeah.
This was my life. Like, okay, I've got a chance. I'm going to do all my exercises every day. This is my new pattern. Boom. I think it was 120 kilos at that stage. And over the next 12 months, taking my journey seriously to get out of pain, I had lost 30 kilos, started full on into bodybuilding, and that weight came off, the injury disappeared, and I was like, yes, look at this, I'm great. So, yeah, I guess I bring that up because of that same vigor that I put into my recovery, I put into this recovery in terms of the mental strain, not only the physical. And that, I think, is why you said it was only a recent time since I've been out. It is, but I think I've made some pretty big leaps and bounds. And whilst I'm now at 10 hours capacity to work, and that's where I'm going to sit until I'm comfortable. I haven't maxed that yet.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to increase that stupidly until I'm comfortable. So while I can do this, I'm still like, okay, I could easily fall back into full-time work, but I don't want to.
No,
and I don't want to burn out. I don't want to fail. I don't want to do that. So taking it one step at a time, but also taking the recovery seriously and doing it for yourself, loving yourself in that way to go, all right, well, we've been through this. Now we need to go through this. Let's get out of it. And that's, yeah, I think it's an interesting philosophy to put in.
Yeah. A few people that I've had on the podcast are absolutely the same as you with the activity, like being active in your own recovery. It's so important and it makes such a difference. And instead of having that, it's really hard, instead of having that embitterment for what happened, acknowledging it, moving through the process that you have to go through in relation to your insurers and all that sort of stuff, and getting that squared away. It's very
Which let's not negate it. That can be a punish, like we've
it
been
is
through. We've all been
brutal.
through, yeah.
It is brutal. And I found, and I've spoken about it a few times for everyone that listens since the beginning, you know, like there's a couple of points in my recovery journey. One was being discharged from the police. And from that point, I felt like I could actually start to move forward. But after all those processes are done and you're squared away and you're sitting on that, you know, you're getting your payments every fortnight or every month whenever they come, and you don't have to worry about courts and solicitors anymore. Being active in your recovery and doing things that are good for you, that you know are good for you, everyone's different, just makes such a difference in the way that you recover, because no one's going to come to your house and say, hey, it's time for you to go for a walk outside now. You know?
Unless you've got a very caring and understanding partner or friend, yeah. But mostly that's true.
Even them, you know, like they get the shits. They have enough. You know, like,
especially if you say no so many times.
Yeah, living alongside people like us is a difficult job, you know. But you have to really put in that effort if you genuinely want to have some form of recovery that's sustainable. Yeah,
and I've seen a lot of people through when I was in the union and since that, you know, I'm not dogging on them, but they're stuck.
Yes,
they've got the post-traumatic embitterment disorder. They've got the why me, the blame, and I had that. I had a lot of that in terms of I want accountability for what was done to me. My career's ruined. I was on the step for an inspector's role. I was going to go up to super where I could really make a difference and support people and all this kind of, again, doing everything for everyone else instead of me. I wanted accountability. I wanted people to fall. I wanted it to be noticed. My last day came and went. The only email and contact I got on my last day was from payroll in a very harsh thing saying, "Dear Mr. Cooper."
Brutal.
That's
brutal.
Hello, civilian.
You're a civilian.
Yeah, I was going to say we're equal now, but no, that person's got a high job and I'm an injured worker, so they're higher than me. "Dear Mr. Cooper, please find attached your final remittance payment. The New South Wales Police has no further payment in your honour and there's no further claim, blah, blah, blah. Regards, blah, blah, blah." And I'm like, yep. All that crap about you'll get a phone call from your manager on your last day. The union will ring you. Your mates will ring you. Got nothing. Which is probably good because that was the first thing I woke up to in the morning, other than my lovely wife, giving me a big hug and really supporting me through it. And then I had the day by myself. I opened that email at like 8:30 and everything was downhill from there. Yeah. So anyone that came near me was not going to end well. So, but it took a while because I did want accountability. I felt wronged. I was in that thing. Yeah. And it took I hit a plateau in my treatment. I now remember as we talk about this, I hit a plateau in my treatment where we were just going around in circles, and even the counsellor said, I don't know how you help you, mate. You need to get out of your head. You need to get past this step. We've gone through all these ways and you won't go over the fence. And I had to forgive. Yeah. And when I was told that, much like if I stand here with, you know, my lotus position on the top of a mountain, listening to the sound of one hand clapping and telling all the injured people, you just need to forgive. I know the response because it's exactly what I did and I'd be pushed off the mountain and dead. But it's true. It is so true. And it hurts to say and it hurts to do. But the freedom that you receive after it enables you to move forward. And it took me probably 2.5 months whereby I was writing out, I was recording voice memos, I was trying to do a podcast on my own at one stage. I was doing all this stuff to get it out, and writing or journaling in a voice recorder, just getting those thoughts on paper is really therapeutic. And then, yeah, I went through a phase that I learned before. I wrote everything down, had all this blackness that was inside me of hate, resentment, wanting accountability, revenge, you know, distaste, all this stuff. And it was all there and it was so aggressive and so dark. And I wrote it down and then I left it. And I'm like, right, I changed it. I went back and read it a week later, and I'm like, holy shit, is that me? And it's really, really confronting. And then I had to do it through, I don't even remember how, but it was basically channeling, sitting calmly. You get to a point where you can do it. You got to get it all out of you onto a medium, leave it. If you need to write anymore, write it, leave it, and then read it. And when you're ready to read it, and when you read it, that goes, oh, shit. That's when you're then ready to go, okay, what am I going to do with it? I need to let it go. And you basically have to, you don't need to ring the individual or send them an email or put the post on Facebook or wherever it goes to say, I forgive you, my child.
Yeah.
That's the last thing you want to do. You're only giving forgiveness within yourself because it doesn't matter. While they're worried about you, their energy's burning up.
Yeah.
While you're worried about them, your energy's burning up. And that's what we need to work on, us. So I had all these papers. I sat down one day when I had enough time and ability and went, righto. And I literally, in my head, said to these individuals, I know what you've done to me. I forgive you. Please move on as I need to. And I'm like, that's not working. So then I had to say it out loud. Far out, that hurt. That was really hard to say. Saying it out loud, their name, the issue, and forgiveness was really hard. And then at the end of it, I burst into tears for a couple of hours. I just couldn't believe it. It was such, back to somatic release, it was such a release that it spent me for the day.
Yeah.
And then it took a few days to then I finalised that process by taking all my writings and anything I had left that was negative in that space, and I went out and ceremoniously burnt it. And I don't mean
did you set it on fire? Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't put a mask on and dance around and do all this weird shit. I just sat quietly by myself and set fire to it all until it was ashes and then buried it in the dirt.
Beautiful.
And that cathartic release took a while, but Jesus, it made a heck of a difference. And it is, tread your own path, but something along that space of writing your frustration, anger, resentment, being able to forgive in your heart the damage purely with the intent of being able to move forward and having that release, and then you go and burn it. There's something symbolic about the whole thing that ritualizes it, and it could take you a day, an hour, a year to get through that stage. Might be something that doesn't work for you, but for me it worked, and then that enabled my progress in the treatment to go forward. Suddenly the counselling was working more, and then boom, on a bell curve I increased my capacity to be happy and to move forward so much quicker. It was just awesome. So, and that's, yeah, here where we are now is, I guess, a good point.
Yeah.
We're currently, we do farm sits and house sits every now and then if we want to stop somewhere. We're middle of Queensland on a beautiful property looking after cows and chooks and irrigation. And I'll tell you, getting out into country is just magic. Like, it's so grounding. I talk to cows and feed them carrots and don't really care if they understand what I'm saying. It helps me. I'm doing stuff for me. So that's a good thing.
So good. Smiling, happy.
Yeah, I have that every now and then. It's kind of wild. Yeah. It was a long time I couldn't. It was very, very unique.
Do you have any comments on the TPD situation?
I think the TPD situation is shamefully unattainable in a cost basis, and I understand that. That doesn't help police understand or mitigate that they feel like they're being dropped, ignored, and treated like shit. Because essentially you're putting yourself in the line for not much.
Yeah.
That said, other agencies across Australia have even less than what we have. So it is a grateful account, and I can say that, you know, whether I'm out now or out next year, there's still something, but it's not a great deal. And I'm very grateful for what I got. But it is unattainable. But I go back to what I said before, that it's like the RBA raising the interest rates, expecting the economy to fix. You're only affecting part of the community. You're not affecting everyone. If the RBA and the government were serious, and this is my non-financially trained brain, look at doing something with tax that everyone pays. A GST, like if people are going to go buy expensive stuff, hike the tax up. The government gets more money. It's a disincentive for people to buy expensive stuff, But in a cost of living crisis, we need food, we need petrol, fuel, whatever you need. You need the basics.
Yeah.
And that's what now we see a lot of people are going without because the interest rates hiked, the cost of everything's gone up. So normal people or struggling people are suddenly struggling harder. They can't afford it. Yeah. So, I mean, like that, you need a different approach. And same with the TPD and the Death and Disability for cops and for any other agency, you need a different approach. You need to stop harming them from within. As I said, like the job is hard enough.
Yeah.
But if you have a good support network and you have good resilience and you're fostered now, because they're bringing in a lot of programs that some people like, some don't, but at least they're trying. They're trying to bring it in, but it'll take a while for that to do a full circle. While you can look after yourself in the job, you've got a great opportunity, apart from an untimely incident that you should be given all the kudos. Like if you're killed on duty or severely hurt on duty, you should be looked after a lot better.
Yeah.
But yeah, they need to stop hurting people with the death of 1,000 paper cuts. So there's actually an individual in management that referred to that as his tactic, and everyone knew that as the tactic. And it was harsh, but it's like kicking a dog after it's peed on the couch, or even when the dog doesn't understand the correlation, because largely you're not getting in trouble for something you've done because they can't justify that. You're getting in trouble for something remote.
Yeah.
So it's segue, but yeah, you need to look at a different way of treating the first responders so that they do feel safe, they do feel secure, they can go and do their job properly, and then come back and hopefully be supported, because I think that will create longevity and resilience.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, in the moment, you try and leave the police is a good paying job. You try and leave that to go and do something else, and you're struggling, because a lot of cops, unfortunately, set themselves up with the must-have house and the must-have car and all that kind of stuff. So you're already up here with the high level of expenditure. And a lot of them I dealt with were counting the overtime into their budget.
That's right.
The
Yeah.
overtime, or you
Not
go
a
back to
bonus.
base wage, you lose. Like when I went off in highway back in back 2010, I lost $2,000 a month, and that made an impact.
Yeah.
So it is harsh in there, but it's just, I hope people in the job now can still do the job well and just be mindful to look after themselves, because you're going to need to hold your own line until the company can bring it up. There is some places that are supporting better than others, don't get me wrong, but I think it's going to be a longer time for that. And I think that will cause that cultural change, and the support from within, the proper support from within, will really change in terms of the injury rate. Because I'm not negativing it at all, don't get me wrong. But if you're struggling and you get to the point where your bucket's full for whatever reason, you need time off.
Yes.
And you should be supported for that. But like many, especially in remote areas, you take time off, they want you to continue your tenure to get the money for your body, like you experience. You need to keep going. And then it's like, well, why can't you? And it's like you questioned. It's like, you're not my doctor.
No. And if it was a broken, psychological injuries are really tricky too for people to navigate, because it's not a physical injury that you can see, feel, any of that sort of stuff. So it's like if someone's got a broken leg, you're not going to tell them to come back after 2 weeks after a surgery or something like that, are you? Like, or ask them or question them about it. Like, you can see it. Like, I think that's a real struggle for people as well. And they question themselves, like, well, why can't I go back? I have had 2 weeks off work. What's going on? It's a tricky one.
And then they get back, and as I've experienced, they get a directive memorandum to answer why they were seen at a coffee shop when they were on sick leave. And you're like, seriously? That one day that took all week for someone to gear up the courage to go and have a coffee with their friend, to just get out, and then someone's seen them and gone, oh, they can't be that sick, they're having coffee. Like, in the worlds of Kamal, why are people so unkind? It's weird that happens. And instead of it just being a supervisor going, hey, are you okay? Someone said you're out. Oh, yeah, I've managed to finally drag my ass out of bed and got to a coffee shop today, and I think it really helped. Would you like to meet me for coffee next week, and we could talk about return to work? Instead of that, which would increase the prospect of coming back, you get directive memorandum or a formal interview, that then they'll bring up, oh, and your caseload suffered. Well, I haven't been here for a month, so how could I?
Well, haven't you actioned your cases?
It's like, they're like, no, you're avoiding it. It's so I mean, you can go around in circles, but I hold hope because I know people now that are going into it and people that are in radio and stuff, and you think, I hold hope because if we can't sit back and think, the cops are there to support us, what hope is there? And the amount of shit I see on social media feeds now where people are becoming influencers or some other term because they're filming their interactions with cops, trying to be sovereign citizens or just being dickheads. And the cops are doing their best not to, because they're not allowed to anymore, physically communicate. They've got a body worn. They're live streaming on TikTok or whatever. You've got to be professional, which is fine. I've got no issue with that. But how much shit can you take before you blow up? Where's that going to be where the button's pushed? And sometimes it's happened. But where is it that, this is where I sometimes might have got in trouble. So I think that Brad would come back if I was on the street today, and a lot of people would lose their phones, and I'd probably be
You probably wouldn't last long.
No, well, that was my psych's recommendation, that if I went back, it was going to end poorly. So, I trusted him, and now I teach people who want to kill me how to drive for a living, and it's very calming.
Yeah,
I figure. I don't know how it all works. Rosie, help me understand it.
I don't know. I know. I've looked into it all as well. I don't know. Some things just work.
Yeah, you find out what works and you stick with it, eh? That's just where you have to go, I think. But I'm really stoked to see you looking so happy and well. I know your last bit, all the IMEs and all that stuff. I know how taxing that is. You do get over it. It's just about a lot of my recovery and a lot of the stuff in here is about giving yourself permission to feel.
Yeah.
Because we've been so doctored to hide or cover it up with alcohol or any other vice. And it's giving yourself permission to feel. And sometimes that's hard. But when your body accepts, and this is more woo-woo, but when I've found for me, I try and give myself permission. I chew my nails. I can have no idea why. I've done it since I was a kid. I stopped briefly, but then I still do it. And there's all this stuff about give yourself permission to feel what you're feeling when you chew your nails. And I'm like, okay, I'll do that. And I still keep chewing. I can't find it, can't tap in. But on other spaces, I can tap into, give yourself permission to feel what this emotion's coming up. You get it burning and you're like, why am I feeling like I want to cry or scream? Give yourself permission. And when everything connects and goes, okay, finally you get a connection. And then it's like, oh, that was really good release. I now understand what that is. But it's all hard and part of the parcel of development, post-traumatic stress disorder, post-traumatic stress development. There was another phrase that
post-traumatic growth.
Post-traumatic growth. That's the phrase. It's reframing it. You can say, I've got a disorder, I've got this, I've got an injury, I've got an illness. But out of it does come growth if you allow it to happen and if you choose to. And that's, I don't want to sit here miserable.
No, you're alive for a long time. You're dead for a long time, even longer. But the time that you're here, you can't let, you can let those things affect you for a while, but you have to try and move past it for the good of yourself, but also everyone that's around you.
Yeah, and they say there's a saying that, you only live once. Well, I challenge that. You only die once. You live every day.
Absolutely.
That's not my saying, but I've read it and I believe it wholeheartedly. It's one of those things you need to look forward to. I've been to that dark pit. I'm glad I got out of it. Others that I know haven't been so lucky, and it's just a shame. It is a shame that you can't reach more people before they consider that. The only thing I could think of is for me, I didn't want to tell anyone because I felt ashamed. And I think a lot of other people that I've been involved with who have had near experiences had a similar thing. So it may be that if you're sitting there and you feel there's no other way out, for me it was, I've got no money, we've got nothing left, we're going to lose our house because I've lost all this money, we were so overcapitalised. I was a perfect example. We're so overcapitalised, we lost the money, $2,000 a month. That was what we lost in mortgage payments. I was angry at the kids. No one wanted me home. No one wanted to be near me. I was in so much pain. Everyone would be better off without me. That's, I think, for me and what I assume others in that space go through based on who I've spoken to. And it is a feeling of helplessness, and it's often with empathy type people that it's like, well, I don't want to put this on anyone anymore. So I'm going to take this action and everyone will be better. I do have a will now, but I'm not going to go down that path anymore. Everyone will be better without me and we'll just take this path. All I can anyone, if they get to that point, pick up the phone, call someone and just say, look, I'm having a really bad time. Call me. I don't care. Get in touch through the links. Call me. I'll talk to you. There is so many agencies out there, but I think also as first responders, and when you get to that dark level, if you're really in that dark level, it's hard to speak to someone you don't know for fear of almost the fear of being made look like a fool. Like you've got that fear of, no, they won't understand and I don't want to be ridiculed. But yeah, I can tell you, if you have that, like I had, someone turn up at the door as an intervention to just, let's do something else. Let's try a different path here.
Did he know that's what you were up to? Did he know you were having such a tough time and he turned up, or did he just have a calling to come and see you that day?
He knew I was off and he knew I was in pain because we were catching up, and I was, for something to do, I'd go down and catch him at the church and help out with audio stuff because I used to do mixing and stuff.
Yeah.
He didn't know that was what was going on. He hadn't ever turned up before without plans. He just turned up this day and said, I had to come and have a coffee with you. I had to come and see you. So I'm going to hang with you for a while. I need to. And I'm like, okay. And then it was days later, he sort of asked me, he goes, you're all right? Like he was trying to make sense of what had happened.
Yeah, he didn't understand it himself.
He trusted in his God that he had a feeling he had to come and see me and he needed to do it. So he did it and I was there and it all went well. But he was still trying to reconcile. And it took a couple of weeks. And then I sat down and said, look, this is what was happening that day. And he just gave me the biggest hug and we both burst into tears. And it was like, wow. Because it had almost, he was sitting there going, what? Like, you told me to go. What happens? What did I do? Like nothing. It looked normal. Like he was almost, Chris is kind of, he's like, oh, look, he's a fancy bear. And he still is. God love him. He's up at Bundaberg. I still keep in touch, not as often as I should, but he's still always in my thoughts. But yeah, when that moment clicked and he finally knew why he was sent there, he was so relieved that it worked the way he did. And we spent a lot of time together after that. It was really cool.
I think that would have been like you said, amazing for him to know that, to follow that instinct was actually for a purpose, even though you didn't tell him for a few weeks. He definitely, and then he would continue to do that and listen to those little voices that his God that he hears, to do those things. I find that those things are amazing,
Yeah.
And I'm not very religious, but someone that is religious, I could say, yeah, that's your God talking to you to do those things. Yeah.
And look, I thought after that, okay, yeah, look, I'll see I've never been shy of religion and hearing what they've got to talk about. Hare Krishnas, the Buddhists are like that. There's a whole lot of stuff I've talked about, no worries. But I went down and I'm like, okay. And then they had these big blue police Bibles. They were kind of police-ified.
Yeah.
They had police action photos in it. And it was kind of a Bible for dummies, so we could understand it.
Yeah. Because
did you get one?
I was going to say, we're not known for our intelligence. That's not true.
It's just that it came out in plain English. Like I had the tiny one from the Gideons that I did my swearing on when I marched out. Not again that I was religious, but I just thought, no, if there's any entity, God or universe or whatever it is, I don't put a figure on it, but all right, this could be a pathway to it. So that'll do. But yeah, now I definitely, well, for a long time, I've believed there's something. So for me, it's like just the universe. And it works well with meditation and putting it out to the universe and manifesting if you're into that, or just relaxing or just connecting and being present and giving thanks to, not praying at a dinner table, but, I have gratitude for my amazing life now. I have gratitude for my health, my ability to be doing this and talking to you. Like, who would have thunk back in the Inverell funny driving days when we're going out doing weird stuff that we'd be doing this now? Were you in the car when I took my dog to the vet?
Yeah.
That was you. That was hilarious. I keep telling people about that. The most expensive dog in the world, and boy, did it stink.
No, it's definitely one of my not at the time, but one of my fondest memories, because it swallowed a sock, didn't it?
No, it was
a
German Shepherd, beautiful German Shepherd. I had two. He started getting sick and off food and all that kind of stuff. Took him to one of the vets in town because my other favourite vet X-ray machine was out, and they said, "Oh, it's got a heart murmur." I'm like, "What?" And I listened to it and I could hear something, but I'm like, "Oh, I'm not a fucking vet. I don't know." And they said, "Oh, you'll probably die in a couple of days. Here's some painkillers." I'm like, "Fuck off. Nah, not accepting this, not accepting this." And then a couple of days later, and I'm like, "Nah." And yeah, I rang the vet, I think. I remember, for some reason, I thought it was someone else, but I also thought it might have been you. So I'm glad it was you.
It was
I
me.
checked now. I remember we were doing a day and it was like, right, I just got to go home and do this thing. So we screamed up in the highway car, got to the dog, couldn't walk. He was nearly dead. Rang my vet, the good one, put him in the back car, and we're going out there. And on the way, the most putrid stink had come out of him.
It was rank.
It
Oh
was
my
just
God.
full speed, windows down. Yeah, it was gross. And it turned out, that she opened him up pretty well straight away. His bowel ruptured, and if he'd have stayed home, he would have been dead by the time I got home.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
he'd when we learned of this, I got home to the then family and said, "Does anyone feed Buff any thing that shouldn't have had?" And a pipe up says, "Oh,
Oh,
about a week ago, he ate my ice block." I said, "Pardon me?" And apparently they'd given an ice cream on a ice cream stick, let him lick it, but being a German Shepherd and hungry, he just took the whole thing.
took the
So the
stick.
whole paddle pop stick went into his bowel, twisted it, locked up. So they cut out half a metre of bowel. It was all necrotic. It ruptured. It was bang. It came back good as new 3 grand later. But that was one of the funny things that I remember not getting in trouble for using the police car for.
Yeah, no, that was funny. Another one, I remember
spectacular
talking to
situation.
Rob about being with you, and I must have been really junior because it was when I was a pro and I had to do the rotations like through the detectives and highway and all this stuff. And I was with you, and I did another one with Shannon Cobley. But I was with you one day, and we were in between Inverell and Glen Innes, and you picked we were on the side of the road, and you with the radar, and you picked someone up. I don't know how fast they were going. They were going really fast, and you're like, "You right with this one?" I'm like, "Yeah, no worries." And I went over and had a chat to them. I was talking to them, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes or so, like ages, having a big old chat. And then they drove off, and I walked back over to you, and you went, "What's going on?" I'm like, "Oh, no, they're right. They're just going to their mum's funeral." You're like, "What the fuck?" They must have been about doing 35 over or something like that. I'm sure you're expecting me to come over and grab the tin book. And I was like, "Oh, no. I sort of feel bad for the guy." And you're like, "He's probably got drugs and guns in that car." Like,
Was he happy to talk to you? Yeah. That's one of those things. That's what we learn, and that's what you get that gut feeling of.
Constable care.
Why is someone so happy to talk about this or happy to take a high speed fine? Because that's the least of their problems. And they've got a ton of shit in the boot or something, or a dead body. Yeah, I remember. That's hilarious.
So funny.
The benefit is there's always another one to come along later. So
there's always there was.
Well, I remember you saying, "Oh, I feel bad giving people tickets. Do you like arresting them?" "Oh, yeah, that's fun." "Well, what's the difference?"
That didn't last long. I used to love giving out tickets by the end. But the other thing I wanted to say to you, because you mentioned it, is when you listened to my story and you felt that little bit of responsibility and that you could have held me or protected me in some way. I just wanted to let you know that you really had a big influence, even though I was in GDs and you're in highway. When I think back to those very early days, and when you become a police officer, they say sometimes to grab things from other people, and that will form how you are, because I felt really unsure of the police officer that I wanted to be, especially being female. And there wasn't that many. I mean, there was Nettie, who was an amazing role model as a female police officer. But you had a really great impact on my style of policing. And I think it was because of the kindness that you showed and how fair you were to people. Even as a highway patrol officer, I
like how you put that caveat in.
You weren't, but you weren't like, the crunchy back type, and you weren't that type of highway patrol officer. And you're still doing it now. You wanted to educate people and show kindness to people, and you definitely showed that to me. And working with you and seeing that and how the results that you got out of that as well with people, that really meant a lot that I could do that with you. So even though you weren't there in the darkest times, you were there right at the start, and it means a lot. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Lucky it's not video recording and seeing my tears, but thank you. That's beautiful. I appreciate that. It's good to know. Yes. I appreciate that, to be seen as that kind of a person in that space, because that's, yeah, obviously my personality did, or my desire did come through the police part of it. I just, yeah, for the most part, couldn't be a hard ass, and you wanted to help people and be there to support. Why knock down the person that you want to rely on to save your ass in a gunfight? Like,
yeah,
a lot of it happens, but no, that's really beautiful. Thanks, Rose.
No, that's okay. It's true. It's important to tell people how you feel about them, I think, even though it's years later. And especially when I rolled in for L15 and you were the first one on scene, I was very grateful.
Oh, that
was you that turned up.
Your poor offsider, he was just shaking his head.
Poor old Joey. Love Joey.
No, that was, oh, dear.
And that's the incident where we had choir practice. So I after we all went to the hospital and got all cleared to go home, and it was definitely, I felt a sense of responsibility to put on a few beers, so we did. And you know, even though I know Joey and I both still struggle with vehicles and driving and have a little bit of trauma in relation to that, but I really think that helped in that instance in particular for us to sort of move through it and what happened and have a bit of a laugh at the end of the day. And everyone was okay, thank God. Infrared 15 was never okay again. It was a write-off. It was a Ranger though. So and that was
with the pod and no
it was that time.
and that whole issue they had with the Varley pods on a standard back car. They were overloaded. They were illegal. They were just ridiculously poorly managed until they did upgrades, and now, oh, they're still not great.
Yeah.
Much safer in a highway car.
Absolutely.
Much more fun, much faster.
Yeah, good times. Oh, Brad Cooper, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciated the chat. It's been amazing.
It's been a blast, and I appreciate your kind words. It's really good to see you looking healthy and well. And yeah, a lot of people I now see that I knew in the job, and you can see that next layer of their life, the growth period, the who am I now and moving forward. It's great to see you in that space now and doing so wonderfully with this, because the message you've got is awesome. I'm honoured to be on, to put my 2 cents worth in. And yeah, if you need help getting back in the driver's seat, I'll come over, I'll come down and we'll do some more funny driving and see if we can help you overcome your fears.
It probably wouldn't be a bad thing.
I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. If you have, make sure to hit subscribe so you never miss any new ones. We release fresh content every Tuesday. And while you're there, take a moment to leave us a review. I would genuinely appreciate your thoughts. Don't forget to connect with me on Instagram and Facebook at Tactical Yoga Australia, and share this episode with your friends, family and workmates to spread inspiration. Your support means the world. My name is Rosie Skeen. Join me again next week for another empowering and positive episode of Triumph Beyond Trauma. Until then, be kind to your mind and trust in the magic of your consistent and positive efforts. Triumph beyond your trauma is closer than you think. Have the best week.